Good morning, everybody. I thought I'd do this for a couple hours today, talk about college football. I gotta admit, though, it still doesn't feel the same. They really need fans back in the stadium. Did Louisville win last night? I know they were winning at halftime, but I fell asleep. No, they lost badly. Wow, they got destroyed. Jeez. I lived in Louisville for 2 years. I was there not the year Lamar Jackson won the Heisman, but the year after. And Louisville fans are a weird bunch. They care about basketball more, but I know they were like talking about how Scott Satterfield after last year like was a miracle worker, and I was like, no, I think that's more the fact that you guys played a really bad ACC schedule rather than the fact that he's turned you guys around. And an 0-3 start in the ACC this year and no ACC wins, I think that I'm right on that regard, at least so far. Like, they were not expected to start 0-3 in the ACC, I can tell you that. But obviously, the big game going on right now. There's actually a few big games going on right now. But obviously, me growing up in the Dallas Fort Worth area, it's Texas OU, and that was always the big game when I was growing up. Even though I wasn't a fan of either team, it was always a big deal, especially with the state fair and everything. So that's the game going on right now, and it looks like Oklahoma's trying to punch it into the end zone right now. They just got stopped on second down, but it looks like they're about at the 1.5 yard line, so it's going to be third and goal for them. I tried telling you guys about Texas. Texas, they beat UTEP really bad in their first game, and everyone was giving all this hype, and I was like, dude, it's UTEP, right? It's UTEP. They're really bad. And then they barely beat a not good Texas Tech team, and then TCU beats them last week. Yeah. Oh, it looks like Texas stopped them there on a third down, so Oklahoma will probably go for it on fourth down. But going back to Texas, I think the problem with Texas is not coaching. They can have a revolving door of coaches all they want, right? The problem is just they recruit the wrong type of player, and the boosters are too powerful. You need a mafia boss type of coach to succeed at a place like Texas. And another great example of a program like this is Michigan. You need a coach who's like a mafia boss, like doesn't take any crap. And I think the problem with Tom Herman and Jim Harbaugh to a lesser extent is they're more X's and O's guys, and they're not really guys who are equipped to deal with these boosters that are trying to bully. So Oklahoma kicked the field goal. Wow. So, Nick Saban is a perfect example of a mob boss type of guy. He puts the boosters in their place, and that's how he's able to keep that ship running. Because at big schools like Texas and Michigan and Alabama, you're going to recruit a bunch of players who have this big sense of entitlement, and you're going to have to keep them in line, but you're fighting two fronts. You're fighting that front, and you're fighting the booster front. And it's a big enough front to deal with keeping players in line, right? So at TCU, the type of players we recruited, at least when I was there, it's probably a little bit different now, but at least when I was there, we got a lot of 2-star guys, walk-ons, some 3-star recruits that have chips on their shoulders, mad that they weren't given offers by the Texases and Texas A&Ms of the world, and so they had something to prove, so they were more willing to be coached, to listen to the coaches, work hard, nothing was given to them, That's the type of player that we had at TCU. At Texas, or places like that, when we're recruiting a lot of 5-star players, guys who are really, like, everyone who gets an offer to a Division I school is going to be a really good high school player. But these are like the best of the best, that they're recruiting. Like the guys who are McDonald's All-Americans or Under Armour All-Americans, 5-star recruits, like a lot of accolades, a lot of attention from all these schools or all around the country, They're going to have a big ego. And they're gonna feel like they already have it made. They don't have to work hard. Everything's just a sense of entitlement is what it is. And if you can't weed that out of these players, you're gonna have a bad team. And I think we're seeing that with Florida State right now, and we've seen that with Texas since probably 2008. And TCU has never really dealt with that problem. Although I feel like some of the we've recruited better since joining the Big 12, and I feel like we have had some players in that mold. The sense of entitlement. And I guess a good example of that would be Sean Robinson. He was our quarterback in 2018 who transferred to Missouri, and he's already been benched. He didn't even make it 2 games at Missouri before being benched. And a lot of people that I've talked to said that he just had a big sense of entitlement, didn't work hard, didn't go to film room, didn't he just, since he was such a good high school player, like 5A Gatorade Texas State Player of the Year, all that stuff, he just didn't feel the need to work hard. And we're seeing he was benched at TCU, and now he's benched at Missouri. A 5-star quarterback. He was 5-star his junior year, but he got demoted to a 4-star. But still, like, all these accolades coming out of high school, and he's been benched twice. What's he gonna do? Transfer again? So being able to wrangle those types of players is a big deal. Yeah, Timothy, I agree. The governor of Florida actually gave the okay to have full stadiums, and I feel like this is going to be a game of chicken. Um, this is going to be a game of chicken. Like, who's going to be the first sports organization to have a full stadium? You can do it in Florida now. I don't think public universities will do it. I don't think private universities are going to do it. I don't think it's going to be a college. I think it's going to be if I had to place money, if there was a bet being offered, who's going to be the first to have a full stadium, I think it's going to be professional wrestling, because they're both in Florida right now. I could see WWE doing it for Survivor Series pay-per-view next month, or the Royal Rumble in January. AEW is also based in Florida. I could see them doing it to try to get a leg up on WWE, since WWE is their main competitor. I could also see the Jacksonville Jaguars doing it, because the Khan family, they're the owners. I could see them doing it. So it's going to be somewhere in Florida, I think. That's the thing, Texas. I think if Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, gave the okay like Ron DeSantis did in Florida, I could see someone in Texas doing it. I could see Texas A&M doing it. But I don't think that's going to happen with Greg Abbott. He seems to be more following the leads of the the Mike DeWines of the world than the Ron DeSantises of the world. So you played Texas A&M. Let's see what my model said about that. I think it was pretty sharp. I know I don't have a play on it. I think Florida actually met the Keys except one, from what I remember. So yeah, Florida met the Blender and Penny keys. A&M didn't meet any of the keys. They did meet the cover key, actually. My model had it at about Florida between 7 and 14 points, so in the middle about 10. I think that sounds about right. That's the thing with Texas A&M. So they just scored a touchdown, by the way, A&M did. But A&M, so when I was in high school, like my group of friends, most of them went to Texas A&M, and some of them went to North Texas. Those were the two big schools that my group of friends went to, A&M and North Texas. So I have a ton of Aggie friends, and that fan base is something else, I can tell you that. But ever since they joined the SEC, they cannot win big home games. They never have. Except for, if you want to call it LSU in 2018 a big home game, you can call it that. That's about the only big SEC home game they've won since joining the SEC. That when they had against Alabama in 2012, that was on the road. But everyone talks about how big of a home advantage Kyle Field is, and I've never been to a game there, but my dad played there, and he says it's loud and but they just cannot win big home games, and so this is another crack they have at it. But it's funny. I just my Aggie friends. I know when they first joined the SEC and they had that good first year and they're unbearable. But they've kind of come back down to earth. But they really did think Jimbo was going to turn them around faster than this. So I do get a little bit of schadenfreude watching them lose, though, just because I have so many Aggie friends. It's ridiculous. Yeah, that's the thing. Wrestling, the McMahons, I think the McMahon family or the Khan family, neither of them are what you would call Democrats. Linda McMahon isn't she like the head of Trump's, she was head of the Small Business Administration, but I think she works with the campaign now. And I know the Khan family is conservative as well. So both of them are, They're not. They don't. Their political leanings are not ones that would be lockdown focused. So I could definitely see professional wrestling breaking that glass ceiling that we're gonna have, because I feel like it's gonna be a game of chicken. No one's gonna want to be that, I guess, guinea pig to have a full stadium. No one wants to do it. Everyone's so worried, but that's the thing. Donald Trump's been having these big rallies. Before he got COVID, he was having rallies, 10, 15,000 people. And everyone was saying how those were going to be super spreader events, but he had them in Las Vegas, Reno, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Florida, and I haven't heard any news. You think if there would have been like a mass super spreader event at those rallies where the mass hospitalizations and, everything, we would hear about it, but we haven't. So I'm still really skeptical about these big events being super spreaders, uh, if you ask me, I feel like the virus has run its course in most places, and a lot of people have already got it and didn't know they had it and have built up immunity. I feel like that's kind of the case. LSU minus 14, and I would not bet LSU on the road at 14 and a half. I think my model had it right at 15, so no value either way. But that hook, the 14 and a half as opposed to 14, not a chance. Not on the road. If they were still at home, the line wouldn't be 14. So North Carolina's off to a big start against Virginia Tech. What sports do you bet on in India? But going back to Virginia Tech, so they are coached by my offensive coordinator at TCU. So Coach Fuente was the running backs coach my first year at TCU, and then he got promoted to offensive coordinator and really simplified our offense. Our offense was like, I still have the playbook from 2008 like in a storage unit somewhere, and it was like a binder like this thick. And the new playbook that Coach Fuente gave us after he took over, it was like 3 pages, like just 2 pieces of paper stapled together. I'm not joking. He really simplified our offense big time. And we had a good 3-year run when he was offensive coordinator before he got hired at Memphis. He was like pretty much every other coach. He was really nice off the field, but on the field he was a total jerk. I just remember one time, we would have different huddles, and I was in the 3 huddle, the third stringers, and during the spring especially, I'd get a lot of reps in the third huddle, and I remember one time, we had a guy who was supposed to be in, who wasn't in, and I realized we didn't have enough guys in there, so right before the snap, I ran out there to run the play, and, I ran the wrong play, because I didn't know I thought I knew what the play was, but there's nobody out there, right? So how can you run the play when we didn't have the full complement of receivers? And man, Coach Fuente just ripped into me. He's like, if you don't know what the F you're doing, don't be in, he was mad. And it's the third huddle, and the third huddle, it's the third stringers. During the season, the third huddle is scout team. They play scout team. There is no third huddle during the season. Really, there's only a third huddle during spring ball and camp. So, but once camp is over and you start doing game week preparation, there's only 2 huddles, and everybody is not in one of those. If you're not in the first 2 huddles, you're playing scout team. So that's kind of how it worked. The goal is for you to get promoted to the second huddle, so you didn't have to do scout team. But I didn't really mind. I knew I was not good enough to play second huddle. I didn't mind playing scout team. But even with scout team, there's different strings as well. You had like a first string scout team huddle because they want the players in there that'll give the good look, right? The best look. So I was in the last string scout team huddle. I was not a good college football player. Let's put it that way. I was good enough to be there, but not good enough to. So since I was in that last string scout team huddle, it wasn't so much it was the last string scout team huddle, but like if you're like the first string scout teamer, you would be the hot route, what they would call the hot route. So every play had a designated player that the defense was keying on. So the good scout team players would be that player. I was never that player. I was always like the 4th option on every play. I had some good catches in scout team and some good plays, but since I wasn't that good of a player compared to the other, because the other scout teamers for the most part were not other walk-ons like me. They were like redshirt freshmen who were really good players, but just green and new. So obviously, like those highly touted freshmen that were redshirting that were playing scout team were going to be those hot players, the key players. But yeah, I was always like the third or fourth option on all the scout team plays. But I made some good plays. KJ Costello, he's the thing with Mike Leach's offenses is that Mike Leach's offenses are always going to be a system offense. So whoever plays quarterback for a Mike Leach offense is always going to put up good numbers regardless of how good they are. The thing with Mike Leach's offense is that they're kind of like the triple option offenses of passing games. It's all about like short plays, not so much explosive plays, but just like nickel and diming your way down the field through the passing game. And the issue with the Mike Leach offense is the same issue as you have with the triple option offense, and that's penalties, losses of yards, and just being unable to finish drives, because you can only nickel and dime your way down the field so long. Eventually, you're going to need some big plays. You're going to need, to keep moving the chains, not have any penalties, losses of yards. But, if you throw the ball 60, 70 times a game, you're always going to put up good numbers. So KJ Costello, a very highly recruited quarterback out of high school, did not pan out at Stanford. But, he's a Mike Leach quarterback. He's going to put up big numbers. I was surprised they lost to Arkansas last week, but I think what happened is that they beat LSU just because a lot of these teams just aren't prepared for their first game. A lot of teams are, and that's because Urban Meyer said it last week. A lot of these teams are just not – they're out of routine, and routine is very important in college football. And when you're out of routine, it'll show, especially in that first game, and it might take a game or two before you get your feet under you. So that's why LSU lost to Mississippi State, and then the next week they lay an egg against Arkansas. East Carolina and South Florida. Talk about a bad matchup, by the way. Both those teams suck. Oops. I'm trying to find East Carolina and South Florida. There it is. South Florida on the money line was the play for this one. Minus 190. I don't know. Both teams have looked bad, so honestly, I don't know. I really thought East Carolina was going to take that next step this year because they kind of looked better in the second half last year, but that hasn't happened. I'm kind of surprised, to be honest with you. They returned their quarterback. They had some, decent games. Like they had a road game against SMU that they looked pretty good in. They looked decent against UCF, decent against Temple. So I'm surprised that they have not taken it. But South Florida, I expected them to be bad. I didn't like the coach they hired. I don't think he's going to take them. I don't think he is an upgrade over Charlie Strong. So yeah, so I haven't been to Las Vegas since July, and I'm not going to go back until all this COVID stuff is done. But I've actually had people come up to me in Las Vegas and say they watch my videos. And it's happened outside of Las Vegas, too. I was eating at a steakhouse in Houston, and one of the employees recognized me. It was kind of funny, because it's only happened in Las Vegas. And, I feel like my channel hasn't gotten that big to where that'll happen yet, but no, it happened. Margin of error is higher when you're built on long drives. What I'm saying, so I'll use TCU as an example. So the TCU defense, it's really good every year. That's kind of what our program's built off of. But the weakness has always been the big play. So what Gary Patterson does is he will take away the run game. He will take away the short play. He will prevent you from nickel diming, because the idea is to force a 3 and out, get you off the field. But at the expense of the big play. So we're always vulnerable to the big play, and that's what got us beat against Iowa State, is we gave up too many big plays. so the Gary Patterson defense, 9 times out of 10, he'll have a good defensive play. But that 1 out of 10, it'll be a big play, right? You're trying to minimize the big plays. So the Mike Leach offense would be is the opposite of that. It's all about nickel and diming your way down the field without so many big plays. Short passing routes, just continually move the ball forward shortly. But really, it's all about striking the right balance between explosive plays and efficiency. So efficiency is short nickel and diming. Explosiveness is your big plays, and I feel like the Mike Leach offense, if he doesn't get enough big plays, it's going to put up a lot of impressive numbers, but not enough points. So that's kind of how the Mike Leach offense works. All right, so Oklahoma's up 10-0. I'm surprised. I said in my video that I thought Oklahoma would just kind of lay down and quit. Yeah, Texas just their offensive line just got blown up on that third down play. Yeah, it was funny, I have a rule where I don't name touts specifically. I don't name them by name, but I've always considered maybe getting rid of that rule because I see them on Twitter all the time. I see them on YouTube all the time. And it's like, geez, these people are idiots. I cannot stand touts. There's some guy who is talking about how, oh man, even if I can just win you $1, I'm satisfied. They call themselves, sports consultants and stuff like that. But he was like, they'll find one customer who won one game and use their testimonial as PR. It's sick. Yeah, touts are just scam. And it was funny. I would go to Las Vegas last year for college football season about once a month, and there was always this homeless guy who would make his rounds around the Westgate on Saturdays, and just kind of he'd walk by you, and he'd be like, "Hey man." He wouldn't look you in the eye, but he'd just kind of say it loud enough to where you could hear him. He'd be like, "Man, this guy just gave me these picks and he is on fire," And what he was trying to do is he was trying to get you to say, "Who is this guy?" And he would make his rounds. He'd be like, "Man, this guy has given me 30 winners today." He was obviously a homeless guy that some tout paid off to try to advertise for his tout scam. So what I did is I was sitting along the bar rail. And I actually started picking his brain, right? Just messing with them. But that's the lengths, the resorts that touts will resort to in Las Vegas to get you to buy their losing picks. The line movement in the Clemson game, I know I was going to be on Clemson if the line dropped to 13.5. Has it gotten that down yet? I'm going to have to look. It's at 15, so I'm not surprised. I think the line at 14 was too low, and I do think it should have been around 16, 17. So I'm not surprised at the line movement there. I didn't expect it to get down to 13.5. Vegas Dave is not the most popular tout. He's one of the loudest touts. That's the thing, touts, I've said this in my videos, I did the whole point of my channel at first was to expose, just talk about how bad touts are, but, that wouldn't have got me very far, but he's the loudest tout, and touts put a million times more effort into their marketing and hype and advertising than they do their actual handicapping. I told you, touts, they'll flip coins. That's the extent of their handicapping because they don't care. They just want your money. They don't care if they give you winners or losers. But what they do care is getting customers. So they're going to invest all their energy and effort into getting customers, advertising, and that's what Vegas Dave does. His gimmick is to flash his lifestyle out to everybody and say, "This is what you can do if you follow me." And so that's kind of how he operates. Other touts, all touts operate that way. Most touts are just going to advertise their short-term hot streaks, and every tout can have one. You know, if I were to give you like 100 different lists of picks, um, there would be at least one or two of those that were really hot that I could advertise. So that's what touts do. They create a bunch of different buckets of picks, and whichever one of those buckets is doing the hottest, they're going to advertise. So they're always going to have a hot streak. They give out both sides of the line. They'll pick both sides, and you know, law of averages says that they're going to have a hot streak to advertise. Like here, I'll go to a tout website right now. I'm going to go to Vegas Insider. I know I don't like naming the tout, but just for look, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Actually, I'm surprised it's not here. Usually they on their front page, they've remodeled this page. It used to be different, but usually the front page will be like, oh, this tout is blah 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 against the spread in his last 10 or something like. I'm surprised. Their website is broken. But yeah, like all these guys are idiots. Like, who's the worst one of this? I cannot stand Steven Nover. Like, I've seen him in Las Vegas before, and I've made eye contact with him, and I'm pretty sure he's aware of my videos. Steven Nover. Yeah, this guy's an idiot. Like, I could. Yeah, I don't like naming touts, but like all these guys are retards. For you know, pardon my French. Yeah, paying for picks not only it takes away the fun of sports betting two ways. It doesn't give you a sense of accomplishment if you win, and it makes you lose your money. And losing takes away the fun. Stu Feiner, tout. Wager Talk, tout. Wager Talk is full of a bunch of former pregame touts who left pregame because they would feel like they weren't getting enough cut of their tout money, and so they all formed their own site, Wager Talk. That's all it is. Former pregame touts. Marco D'Angelo, dumbass. Who else is over there? Kelly in Vegas. So Kelly in Vegas, I can't stand her. She is what you call a siren tout. So she uses her sex appeal to lure people in. But she doesn't know anything. That's her gimmick, is that she's a attractive woman selling sports picks, but she doesn't know anything. Wager Talk's just full of a bunch of idiots. I'm sorry. Teddy Covers, idiot, doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah, Wager Talk. They're the ones that I see pop up on my YouTube feed a lot. And I so badly want to. I just clicked on my Twitter account, and the first thing I see is a Chicago Sun-Times article about Kelly in Vegas. So the Sun-Times wrote an article. Like, that's the thing. Like, the Sun-Times write articles about these touts to give them credibility. I cannot stand the media not doing their research about these touts. I'm going to click on this article. Yeah. So she moved to Las Vegas to play poker, and now she's a tout. Man, this article is a puff piece. Ugh, what a puff piece. Just a joke. Total joke. Daily Wager is garbage. That's what motivated me to create this channel. I was at a restaurant one time eating pizza with my mom, and Daily Wager was on, and I was just like, these people don't know what they're talking about. They're not giving any helpful advice. So that was kind of the whole vehicle of why I started this channel, is because of garbage like that. Do I think TCU beats Kansas State today? If Skylar Thompson doesn't play for K-State, I think they'll beat him easy. If he does play, it'll be tougher. But the spread is 10 for a reason. I think our first game was not indicative of our team. I've seen what TCU has done this year defensively. They've given up too many big plays just because guys are out of position. They haven't had enough practice. They haven't had enough reps. It's all mental. It's not schematic. Get that fixed, and the TCU can win the Big 12. Haralu Lobos Vulgaris. Anyone who claims to be a pro sports bettor is a liar. I'm sorry. And I've had so many people respond to me on YouTube, Twitter, saying that they're a pro bettor and they make money. Anyone who says they're a professional sports bettor is a liar. Because actual pro sports bettors who actually make significant money doing it are not going to advertise the fact. They want to keep the IRS off their back. They want to keep books off their back. They don't want to give away their identity. Anyone who claims to be a pro sports bettor is a liar. Yeah, Kelly in Vegas she moved to Las Vegas to play poker, and she had a lucky parlay. Like, how many moneyline underdog parlays did she make that lost before that one hit, right? That's the thing with these people, is they will advertise the one hit as proof that they're geniuses, and how many losses do they have until they have that one hit? Capper Tech, so sites that rank touts are also run by the touts themselves. I have a video about this. Tout watchdogs, tout scorecards, they're all run by the touts themselves. They're all internal ops. They operate in one of two ways. They're either websites run by the touts themselves that lie about the records, or they're websites that have touts pay them to embellish their records. It's one of the two things. There's no such thing as an independent tout watchdog monitoring website. They're all just offshoots of the touts themselves. Yeah, casinos will ban you if you're a tout. Westgate won't. That's why they employ homeless people to make the rounds around the Westgate to advertise their services instead of the touts themselves, because the touts will be banned immediately. Because these establishments don't want you using their business to make money. It's no different than gyms that ban personal trainers that aren't employed by the gyms themselves, because they don't want you using their real estate to conduct your business. Yeah, the TCU defense is good. Like I said, just get the mental mistakes out of the way, and they can be really good. Yeah, Giordano's is the best pizza in Las Vegas. I made a video about it in July, and I still haven't edited it yet. I still have the raw video on my computer, and I just haven't... Like, I've been saving those videos for a raining day, so I made a video about, like, my 3 favorite restaurants in Las Vegas, and Giordano's is one of them, and I still have the raw video right here on my computer. I've been saving it for a raining day when I just don't have any videos, but I've been really busy with work, and those road trip videos I edit, those take a while, so I just haven't had time. The road trip videos, like the one I'm editing right now, I had like 480 different video clips to sort through. It's gonna be it was my favorite day of the trip. It's the next one coming, easily my favorite day. So I'm taking a little bit longer with this one. Yeah, Wager Talk, pregame, all those sites are, like you said, big marketing schemes. It's the blind leading the blind is what I call it. That's what I call it, the blind leading the blind. It's just Wager Talk, a bunch of guys in suits that think they know what they're talking about and use buzzwords, trends, other things that make them seem like they know what they're talking about, but it's nothing more than a scam to get you to buy their picks. What's payola? I'm going to have to Google that. Sorry. So I'm running I have the chat on this screen, but my computer's up here. So if I keep looking over here. Payola. Practice of bribing someone to use their influence or position to promote. Yeah, that's exactly what tout watchdog monitors are. It's exactly what they are. Syracuse versus Duke. I wish it were a basketball game, I can tell you that. But it's not. Although Syracuse basketball seems like they haven't been as good in the past few years. I don't think I have a play on that game, though. But I'll show you what my model says. Syracuse, Duke. Syracuse is really bad this year, and Duke isn't that much better either, so... I don't think I have a play on this one. Yeah, no play. It has Duke by about 1. The blender's at about 1.5, so the value, if you want to call it that, is Syracuse, but not enough for me to make a play. when the spread is 2.5. I haven't updated those lines. It might be different now. Yeah, the road trip videos. Did I ever hit the East Coast? Stay tuned, but I went through 34 states, so odds are I did. Yes, I did. 34 states. 15 days, 34 states. Yeah, the road trip videos, they take a while to edit. Like, most days had about 200 different video clips that I shot, but this one I'm editing right now had 480, but that's because it was a really eventful day. Awesome location, a lot going on. So, Liberty game, was that the one with Yul Monroe in it? I'm pretty sure the play was Liberty minus 13.5. Not 100% though. Yul Monroe really burned me last week. Actually, no play here. It had Liberty by 15, 12 to 15. The blender had him at 18, so it was split. Yul Monroe met 3 of the keys, and Liberty met 1, so no play. But Yul Monroe, man, last week that was just hard to watch. So if you didn't watch it, I had Yul Monroe plus 900, and Yul Monroe's down 5. They were driving at the end of the game, and their quarterback thought he scored a touchdown with like 15 seconds left, so he was celebrating, but the ref said he was short. And so because they were celebrating, they didn't get back to the line quick enough, and time expired, and the ball was at like the half yard. Ugh, gosh. That was just... Ugh. Anyway, that was them last week. Yeah. The hard part about running this channel is ideas. Like, it's sometimes you have a lot of ideas, and other days you don't have a lot of ideas. Like, I actually shot a video this past Thursday about betting politics and betting the election, and I didn't like the final product. I just felt like it would have attracted the wrong crowd. People who don't watch my videos, like people who come from the outside and would just see the video without context, and just, I wasn't ready for that shitstorm. But when it comes to politics betting, election betting, what I do for a living is very tied into that type of stuff, like market research, survey design, focus groups, political polling. I do all that for a living. And what I will say here on this live stream is that you cannot trust media polls to influence your decision on what to bet for politics. Media polls, I've done media polls, I've conducted them, and this is where I felt like the video got me into trouble. A lot of people just think I made the video saying the polls are wrong and I'm a Trump supporter, blah, blah. No. When I say you can't trust media polls, I'm not saying they're wrong because I think they're wrong. I'm saying they're wrong because I've done media polls myself before. And the thing with media polls is that they come to you and they say, can you give us a poll showing this result before we even conduct it? So every media poll out there is run with a end result in mind before it's even conducted. Like, we would have campaigns come to us being like, hey, can you do us a poll showing us up with a decent margin? And so, okay, because polling is expensive. If you want to reach 1,000 people for a poll, it's probably going to cost about $20,000. And it is very difficult to conduct polls. The response rate is so low, it's very hard to get 1,000 responses for anything, let alone 1,000 responses that are a representative sample of the electorate. And, you know, if someone is going to pay $20,000 for a poll, they're going to pay that money with the guarantee that that poll gives them the narrative that they want. So all these media polls you're seeing out there were paid for so they could advance a certain narrative. You cannot trust media polls. You can't. That's part of what I do for a living, and I'm saying it from the horse's mouth. All these polls out there right now about the election are all media polls, and I'm not saying they're bogus. I'm just saying they exist for a reason, and there are so many different ways you can conduct a poll to give a certain result. And 2 of those things are what I call social desirability bias and response bias. Response bias is what had polls showing Mitt Romney up by 4 in 2012. He was never up. Mitt Romney was never up in 2012. But a lot of these polls conducted right after that first debate in 2012 where Mitt Romney had a very good debate were the result of response bias. Because typically, you know, people like to participate in polls when they feel like their candidate is having a favorable news cycle. So all these polls showing Joe Biden up by double digits and everything were conducted while Donald Trump had contracted coronavirus, a bad news cycle for him. So his Donald Trump supporters are going to be less likely to participate in live interviewer polls. Response bias. It's an artifact of polling, and any reputable pollster that wants to accurately measure the actual results of things is not going to measure during a negative news cycle for a candidate, but they did it anyway because, like I said, these polls exist to advance narratives and not accurately measure states of the election. So part of what I do for a living is I work with political campaigns to conduct ad buys, and these campaigns are using internal polls, not media polls. Internal polls are actually accurate, but they're not released by campaigns because they don't want to give away their data. Data's expensive. Like I said, $20,000 for a 1,000 respondent poll. What qualifications do I have in education? Well, I actually majored in broadcast journalism. Everything I know about data science was self-taught. I've taken some online classes for that, but I actually majored in broadcast journalism. I actually did sports radio for a couple years after I graduated, and then I migrated over to the data science side of broadcasting, which is what I do today. Like I said, I do a lot of market research, focus groups, opinion research, polls, political polls, public opinion polls, issue polls. I break down TV audiences. It's pretty crazy. So I am the number 2 of a major broadcast company for the media analytics. So the broadcast company I work for has a media analytics department. They call it media analytics and consumer engagement, but pretty much what I'm the number 2. So there's only one person above me. I oversee a team of media analysts across the country that does media research and all that for 64 different TV stations. So I've climbed the ladder pretty quickly. 6 years ago, I was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, doing all that for one TV station, and now I oversee a team of media analysts for 64 TV stations. I've climbed the ladder pretty quickly. All polls are biased. All media polls are biased. Yes. Like I said, polling is expensive. Polling is expensive. It costs about $20,000 to do a poll of 1,000 people. And people who are going to pay that kind of money to have a poll commissioned are going to want it to have a certain result. That's why so many of these polls are conducted by colleges. Quinnipiac, Siena, Monmouth, Suffolk, all these college, because that way they can reduce the cost of the poll by having college students do it instead of professionals. But here's the deal. A lot of these media polls, they just, as soon as they hit their respondent target, they end the poll right there. They get out of the field. That is a very irresponsible way to poll. They get the first 1,000 people, they have their demographics, they have their breakouts, and then they just apply 2016 exit poll weighting on the results and leave it at that. That is the worst way to poll. To accurately poll a state, you have to accurately poll the geography, and you have to accurately repoll the education. I think those are the 2 most important aspects of a poll. And when I say geography, I'm not just saying like 4 or 5 regions. I would say for like a state like Florida, Pennsylvania, Texas, you're probably going to have to accurately get enough responses in probably 20 to 25 different regions of the state. A lot of these media polls only poll like 4 regions. They'll split Pennsylvania up into like 4 regions: Philadelphia, Northeast, Central, and West, right? But West, okay, West has Pittsburgh in it. But what if all your responses are from Pittsburgh? It's going to be a very Democrat-leaning poll, even though Pittsburgh does not make up a majority of Western Pennsylvania. And that kind of transitions me into another point I want to make about polling, is that national polls are useless. The elections are not conducted nationally. Every election, the only polls that matter are state polls. And so all these national polls showing Biden up 14-16, they're all garbage because it's not a national election. So if you're releasing a national poll, it's for one reason and one reason alone: to push a narrative. Because it's not a national election, so there's no point. You're just wasting your money and time. So it exists solely to push narratives. But I will say this: Biden cannot be up by double digits nationally, and all these polls that have come out over the past couple of days. Trump up 3 in Florida, Trump up 8 in Texas, Trump up 4 in Arizona. You cannot have a Biden 12-point lead nationally and those state results. They cannot both be true at the same time. And the problem with a lot of these national polls that show Biden up 12, 14, 16, I'm not saying this as a Trump supporter. I'm saying this as I do this for a living. The problem with these national polls showing these big Biden leads is that if they poll the question, who'd you vote for in 2016, it's pretty much in line with the 2016 results that had a Hillary +3 final result, right? They are getting these huge Biden leads by assuming that the electorate is going to expand by 40 or 50 million voters, and that all these new voters that didn't vote in the last election are going to vote for Joe Biden by a clip of about 85 to 90%. And from my experience, there's no evidence showing that all these new voters are going to vote for Joe Biden, especially when compared to voter registration records. Republicans have outpaced Democrats in voter registration nationwide. So unless all these new voters that are registering as Republican are going to vote for Joe Biden, there is no evidence out there at all supporting the fact that all these new voters are going to vote for Joe Biden. A lot of people say that 18, 20-year-olds are probably going to be more Democrat-leaning. Yes, but honestly, the Zoomers are not as Democrat-leaning as their generation before them, the millennials. And B, even if 18 to 20-year-olds only make up about 2% of the electorate every year. So all these newly 18-year-old voters since the last election only make up about 2%. And even if they voted for Biden at a 90% click, that's only about half a percentage point in the total electorate. So it really doesn't matter that much. So they're assuming that there's going to be just tons of new voters. I've seen the New York Times claim that they think there's going to be 180 million people vote in this election. That would be 50 million more voters than what turned out for Obama in 2008, which was a high turnout election. I'm sorry, but that's just not going to happen. I do this for a living. That's not going to happen. And I just feel like all these Nate Silvers of the world are going to have egg in their face, just like they did in 2016. And a lot of people will say, the polls were right in 2018, though. No, they weren't. They were not. Trust me on this one. A lot of people will point to the generic ballot as proof that the polls were correct in 2018. But the generic ballot, it did predict a Democrat wave, but a lot of these generic ballots had like Democrats plus 15, 16. It was actually Democrat plus 8. And so a lot of these pollsters hide behind the fact that they got the generic ballot right to hide the fact that their state level polls in 2018 were way off. Way off. Florida, for example, like an A+ rated pollster on 538 had Andrew Gillum up 7 outside of the margin of error on election day. If you're saying someone is 51% outside the margin of error of election day, what you're basically saying is they cannot lose. It is impossible for them to lose, and he lost. And yet this pollster is still rated A+ on 538. They also had Joe Donnelly winning in Indiana. They had Claire McCaskill winning in Missouri. They had Strickland winning the governorship in Ohio. State polling in 2018 was a train wreck. A train wreck. So everyone who say the pollsters corrected their 2016 mistakes in 2018. They did not. State level polling was just as bad. I would say state level polling in 2018 was worse. And I know I've been rambling on about politics when this is supposed to be about college football, but like I said, I was supposed to do a video about politics betting. And I'm just I do this for a living, guys. I do this for a living. Mike Venter. All right, I'm reading the chat here. Campaigns. Yeah, that's the whole point of internal polling. It's supposed to be accurate. It's supposed to tune out the media polling noise. So all these political campaigns that I work with on a daily basis that are making ad buys across the country that I'm giving analytics to, they're coming to me with internal polls. So I can see these internal polls. So I have a more accurate representation of what's going on. They're not going to give me the exact internal poll numbers, but what they're looking for what they're trying to do, who they're trying to reach, is a reflection of these internals. And I can tell you right now, based on right now, October 10th, I would say that Donald Trump has Ohio, Florida, and Iowa in the bag. He's going to win those 3 states. So all these polls showing Biden up by 11 in Florida are bunk. I think Trump has Florida on lockdown, unless, it's still 3 weeks till the election, or 3.5 weeks. Anything can happen. But if the election were today, Trump would win Florida by about 2 to 3 points. Trump would win Ohio by about 6 to 8 points, and he would win Iowa by about 6. So any of these polls showing Biden up in any of those states are bunk. This election is going to come down to Pennsylvania. That's why Joe Biden is having his town hall there on the 15th in Pennsylvania, not a state like Florida or Arizona. He's doing it in Pennsylvania because the Biden campaign knows that if Trump wins Pennsylvania, Trump's going to win the election, because the Biden campaign knows that they're not going to win Florida, they're not going to win Ohio, they're not going to win Iowa. And so the Biden campaigns are like, okay, well, if we're not going to win those states, we have to stop Donald Trump somewhere, and they're making Pennsylvania that battleground. I see it on a daily basis based on how ad buys are being coordinated. So that's the state of the race right now. It's going to come down to Pennsylvania. That doesn't mean that the Trump campaign isn't going to try to contest a state like Minnesota. It doesn't mean they're going to try to... Wisconsin and Michigan are going to be tough states for the Trump campaign to hold. They won them in 2016, but those are going to be tough states for them this year. I think Trump has a better chance in Minnesota. Well, I know what I'm talking about with politics because, like I said, this is what I do for a living. It's not exactly what I do for a living, but it's a major. I do a ton of political research for my day job. Like, let me show you. I don't know. This might be against my contract, but I'm gonna here. Let me just show you some of the data I have access to. Like, this was what I was worried about when I recorded that political video on Thursday. Because I would talk about my credentials and everything, but I wouldn't show stuff like this to prove it. So I feel like a lot of people would just say I'm just like a pundit, and just like I said, the video would have attracted a lot of people that don't normally watch my videos to just sling mud, and I wasn't ready for that. So while that's loading, what I think in Michigan and Wisconsin, in college football, I think Wisconsin's supposed to have a good year, but it seems like every year they're supposed to have a good year, they don't. So, and every year they're not expected to have a good year, they do. Michigan, like I said, I feel like I said at the beginning of this broadcast, Michigan has the same issue that Texas has. It's an institutional problem and not a coaching problem. So, like I said, I have access to all these geographies that I can. So, like, what's a swing state? I don't. So let me do Milwaukee. That's a swing state. So I can ComScore. I'm sorry if I'm breaking any contract rules. But gosh, why is it going so slow? If it's a Saturday, it shouldn't be going this slow. I just want to show you, I'm not going to show you the numbers, but I just want to show you some of the data I work with to coordinate political advertising research. Politics is what keeps the broadcast TV industry alive. So like ComScore political segments, I can basically cross-reference, these political segments. So like Republican high turnout voter, Republican voter, I could show you what TV station they're watching, what programs they're watching. Independents, so it's pretty, so yeah, that's kind of like a prove it right there. Do I think, the thing with Michigan and Wisconsin for the Trump campaign is I think the reason Trump won Michigan in 2016 wasn't because he out-campaigned Clinton. I don't think it was because he did a better job in that state than Clinton. I think he won that state in 2016 because Hillary did not get her base out. Every other state Trump won in 2016 was just because he did a better job of campaigning, except Michigan. He won Michigan because Democrats didn't turn out. I don't think that'll be an issue this year for the Democrats, which is why I think it's a very tough state for him to hold. The thing with political polling is that there's a thing called social desirability bias. So when you have a live interviewer on the phone talking to someone, they're going to be a little bit more uncomfortable sharing their opinions with the pollster. But social desirability bias is basically people who have political voting habits not based on the issues, but based on social desirability, what others will think of them. And the suburbs of Detroit, especially in Oakland County, has a ton of educated white suburban voters that agree with Trump on the issues, but aren't going to vote for him because they're too worried about what others will think of them if they did vote for Trump. These people are pretty well off. How politics plays out isn't going to really affect them. They're going to be well off regardless of who wins. So they're not voting based on their pocketbook. They are voting based on social desirability. And it is more socially desirable in upper class, educated, white suburban communities to say you're voting for Biden. And I think Michigan has too many of those voters for Trump to win it again. And I think Wisconsin is kind of the same way. Not as much as Michigan, but Wisconsin also falls into that same trap. Minnesota, on the other hand, does not have as many of those voters. They don't have as many of those voters, the social desirability voters, which is why I think Minnesota is a better state for Trump this time around than Wisconsin or Michigan is. And that's another reason why I think these media polls are off, is because they're not accounting for social desirability bias. It is a very real thing. You'll have people who are afraid to tell a live interviewer they're voting for Trump. That happened in 2016. It's going to happen again this year. I haven't done presidential polling this time around. But like I said, I work with the campaigns. I know where they're spending money. I know who they're trying to reach. I know, based on their behavior when it comes to that, I think that the media polls are wrong. I do think Biden is up nationally. I don't think he's up double digits. I would say probably between 3 and 6 points nationally. But like I said, it's not a national election. For all we know, that margin could be just huge margins in places like California, Illinois, New York. But based on the behavior of the campaigns, I would say that Trump's going to win Florida, Ohio, Iowa. Arizona is looking better for Trump than the polls show. So I think it's going to come down to Pennsylvania. And you're seeing the behavior of the two campaigns is pointing that direction. Their internals are saying it's going to come down to Pennsylvania based on their behavior, based on how the campaigns are acting. That's, like I said, that's why Biden's having his town hall on Thursday in Philadelphia and not somewhere like Florida or Arizona. And something the media wasn't talking about yesterday is the Biden campaign visited Nevada yesterday. I do political stuff for Nevada. They're worried about Nevada. And I lived in Nevada in 2012 for the election. And this is why they're worried about Nevada, the Democrats, because a major part of the Democrat effort in Nevada for elections is to bus all these casino workers to the polls. They will herd. I saw it firsthand in 2012. They herd these unionized casino workers in Las Vegas, get them on buses, and take them to the polls. That is a major part of the get out the vote effort for Democrats in Nevada. But with all these lockdowns, all these layoffs, all these shutdowns at these casinos in Las Vegas, they're not going to be able to do that this year. So they're having to rely on their union worker employees at these casinos in Las Vegas to vote. They're not going to be able to herd them to the polls like they normally do, and that's why Biden was in Nevada yesterday. That's why he was in Nevada yesterday, and that's why they're buying ads there. Social desirability, it's possible to quantify. You can account for social desirability as long as you get a representative sample of two things: geography and education. You do those two things, you're good to go. Telephone polls still exist. So here's the deal with telephone polls. Gallup. I'm going to use Gallup as an example here. So Gallup, they're probably the name people think of when it comes to polling. Gallup. They were the cream of the crop of political polling for decades. They don't do it anymore. They don't do political polling anymore. Why? For two reasons. One, they called Romney +1 in 2012. They were wrong, and the Obama campaign was mad. Like, Obama was so mad that he was going to use Eric Holder and the DOJ to prosecute Gallup for getting it wrong. I'm not kidding. I'm not joking. You didn't hear about that because I work in media. The media had a vested interest of not reporting anything like that about Obama. But the Obama campaign was going to sue Gallup, stick the DOJ on them. So Gallup got out. And the other reason Gallup got out is because they say that the way they had polled for decades is the response rates have gotten so low they just couldn't do it anymore. And they're right. I've done polling myself. I've done market research surveys. You probably have to make about 40 phone calls before you get someone on the phone willing to do the survey. And out of those people willing to do the survey, you got to have them complete the survey. So you're going to have a lot of people who don't complete it or want to skip ahead. They don't want to keep going. They have somewhere to be. They have to get off the phone. So if you have to call 40 people just to get one person on the phone willing to do the survey, and then from there you have to get a representative sample, that's why polling is so expensive, because you're having to make all these. And it's not just that, but some demographics respond better to certain polling methods. Like the live interviewer method, you're going to get mostly women over the age of 50 who lean Democrat, because those are the type of people who are willing to talk to a live interviewer. You're not going to get the blue-collar steel worker in Western Pennsylvania to get on the phone and talk to a live interviewer. You're not. You have to reach them through other methods. That's the thing with live interviewer polls. They skew women 50+, and they skew left-leaning. You cannot, as someone who's done a live interviewer poll before, you cannot get left-leaning women off the phone fast enough. They will talk your ear off about their political views in a live interviewer poll. Like, you can't get them to shut up. So a lot of these polling firms out there that are only doing live interviewer polling, their results are going to reflect that bias, that live interviewer polls are typically women 50+ who lean left. So if you have a sample of 800 live interviewer polls, the poll's going to reflect that. Polling method, you have to reach certain demographics in certain ways. Like if you're trying to reach lower class, lower income people, the best way to reach them is a focus group and pay them. But the problem with focus groups, the problem with any survey design where you're paying people is you're always going to reach lower income people. They're the only ones willing to actually get paid for something like that. Internet polls, internet surveys, like if you like an automated IVR survey, you're mostly going to get 65+. So, like I said, I've been doing this long enough to know these things. That's exactly what social desirability is. It's political correctness. Wow, this stream is supposed to be about college football, but it's turned into basically my political video I recorded on Thursday. Yeah, so it's pretty much just the desire to be socially. That's the thing, especially with women. Social desirability is a very desired thing when it comes to women. Like, that is very important. They really do care about what others think of them. It's a real thing. All right. Anyway, if you guys have any more political questions, go ahead. But I'm going to go back to talking football. So Florida is up 21-14. Virginia Tech's kind of making a run at it. Oklahoma just scored. They're up by 7. NC State, I'm surprised that they're up on Virginia. Do I have a bet on Virginia? Thankfully, I don't. But yeah, they're up. Yeah. Kind of wish Texas would get into gear. So yeah, this stream is probably going to go till about 2 o'clock. And then I'm going to get ready for the TCU game. So probably an hour and a half more. But yeah, I could talk about. That's another reason I haven't done many political videos, even though I do that a lot for a living. It's just because I don't want to mix work and play, and I consider my YouTube channel play. So I deal a lot with politics for work. Yeah. Which game is tied? 10-10. Actually, Oklahoma just scored. They're kicking off right now. 6:58 in the second half. Missouri. I'm actually, they benched Sean Robinson. Like, is Sean Robinson going to transfer again? So UNC just scored again. That's good. I have UNC on the money line. I can't believe Louisville got blown out last night by Georgia Tech. And they were up at halftime. I wonder what happened. I'll have to ask my Louisville friend. I lived in Louisville for 2 years. I loved it there. I did not leave by choice. The company I worked for got bought out, and they showed me the door. I thought I was invincible. Like, I do good work. Like, I had a call yesterday with people I work with, and they were like, what happens if you win the lottery and quit? We're screwed. Because I do a lot of valuable work that can't be replicated easily. And I thought that was the case for me at my job in Louisville. Nope. New ownership does not care who you are, what you've done. They don't care. And that was kind of a wake-up call for me. So no matter how valuable you make yourself, if your company gets bought out by somebody else, they're not going to care. At least the company that bought out Raycom Media didn't care. You're teasing TC down to 3.5. Do I bet politics? I bet in 2016. I bet if I still had if 5Dimes still let me log in, which they don't, they block U.S. addresses now. But if 5Dimes still let me log in, I would show you the political bets I made in 2016. But I did very well betting politics in 2016 because I knew, like I said, I have my job kind of lends me to insider information. I knew that Trump was in good shape in 2016, and so I bet on him to win a lot of different states. I bet on him to win Florida. I bet on him to win Pennsylvania. I bet on him to win Ohio, and then 2 other states. I bet on him. It was Michigan was one, and it wasn't Wisconsin because I remember I didn't bet. I thought Trump was going to lose Wisconsin in 2016 because he left the state. Like I said, look what the campaigns do and not the polls. Look at what they're doing. And Trump left the state. He stopped campaigning there. He stopped spending money on ads. So it was very surprising that he won there. I think he might have visited there like the last night, but I still didn't. I just thought it was a reach. There's one more state I bet him to win. It was North Carolina. I bet on all 5 of those states, and he won all 5 of those states. I did very well. I won over $1,000. I haven't made any bets in 2020 yet, but I will say, just based on what I see, I think he's going to win Florida, Iowa, and Ohio, barring any major shenanigans. But I will say that this election is going to be unlike any other with mail-in voting. It's not going to be a typical election night. This thing's going to, if Trump wins Florida, which I think he will, this thing's going to drag on for days, if not weeks, with all the mail-in votes. And most of these states are not equipped to handle the mail-in voting. They aren't. It's going to be a mess. So like I said, if in a normal circumstance election, I think Trump wins Florida, Ohio, and Iowa. I just haven't made the bets yet because I'm still waiting to see just how this mail-in voting is going to work out, because I think that's the wild card. Exactly, Steve Johnson. You're right. Teasing TC to 3.5, but who are you teasing him with? I'm not a fan of teasers. Like I said, when I lived in Las Vegas, I used to go to the Westgate on Thursday nights. I would get a bunch of those teaser cards, and I would just fill them out. Like I'd treat them like lottery tickets. Like I'd bet $2 a pop and just fill them out, and I would never win them. Teasers always look good on paper. They always do, but they will lose you money faster than any other betting method. Like even when I use my model, like um, I would make for fun teaser bets with my model, and even then they don't win. It's a headache. They're not profitable. They have high house edges. It's just they're fun. They're fun to bet. They look good on paper, but they just never come through. All right, Texas just scored on a 2-yard run. That's the thing. Like, it just we need crowds back. We need crowds. The hiccups. We need crowds back. This is a Red River rivalry, big deal. And it doesn't feel like it's a real Red River rivalry. And I know both teams are coming off a loss. I know Oklahoma's 1-2. But it just doesn't feel real. Like, I haven't tuned into the A&M game yet, but do they have 50,000 fans there? So you can tease TCU just by itself at the sportsbook in Delaware? Is that what you're saying? Well, the thing with mail-in ballots is I live in California. I got 3 ballots for the primary, only one of which was addressed to me. The other 2 are addressed to people who used to live at my address, or I don't know. My apartment building's not that old, so I don't even know. But what was preventing me from filling out those other 2 ballots? I could have easily filled out those other 2 ballots and dropped them off, and no one would have known. Um, that's kind of the issue with mail-in balloting. Is the reason I am not a fan is because it extends the chain of command. The chain of command is important. So at least with in-person voting, the chain of command is a lot smaller. But with mail-in voting, you have to trust the post office to deliver it properly, and you have to trust the post office to deliver it properly to the polling place. And then you have to trust the people processing the mail-in ballots to, you have to trust them as well. There's just, the chain of command is too big for mail-in ballots. That's my issue. You could pay off a postal worker to go to zip codes that are friendly to Democrats or Republicans and lose the ballots, right? Dump the ballots somewhere. Trust, it's just too ripe for corruption. Yeah, I mean, what juice are you getting on TCU minus 3.5? I would imagine it's got to be in the 200s. A lot of these states are not matching signatures. There are lawsuits being filed because some of these states are waiving the signature requirement. And anyway, say the signature requirement's in place, how do you know it's actually being enforced? Like, the poll worker could be paid off to ignore the signatures, right? It's just the chain of command. Like I said, there's too many people involved in the chain of command with mail ballots. I do think the crowds affect the level of play in college football, especially the home teams. You feed off the crowd. I'm sorry, that's just how it works. I was a college football player myself. You feed off the crowd playing at home. It's a big deal, and seeing those empty seats is demoralizing. So the teaser card, what does that pay? What is that 4-teamer paying out? If you don't mind me asking. Man, I need to put the AC on. It's hot. But yeah, that was the thing. I would make these teaser plays like you did with 4-team teaser, and the first team would lose, and it's like, okay, there's no point even watching the other 3. That's my issue with parlay. That's my issue with people who say that like teaser and parlays are fun for entertainment purposes only. Is that the first team almost always loses. That's not fun. So it pays 7-2 for a 4-teamer, and I'm guessing it's a 6.5. Is it a 6-point teaser? I'm guessing. 7-2 is not bad for a 6-point teaser. That's better than what you're gonna get in Las Vegas. So I'm actually kind of surprised. I thought that the Delaware lottery would be worse. Because I know you can bet in Montana via the lottery, and I know the juice is ridiculous. Like, I want to say it's minus 140 for a side. Oh, yeah, I agree, Steve. It's better than nothing. You know, I remember when they first canceled March Madness, and I was there. At first, they were just saying it was going to be played without crowds, and I was mad. But I would have taken that any day over them canceling it altogether. Yeah, so Missouri is keeping up with LSU. Here's my thing with LSU. I think their championship season last year was not a product of coaching, head coaching. I think it was a product of their coordinators and their players. But when you lose the two coordinators, you lose all those players. Now the head coach has to figure out how to keep winning. I don't think Ed Orgeron is a good coach. I don't. He is a he's what I call a motivator. So in college football, you have three types of coaches. You have the mob bosses like Nick Saban, you have the motivators like Ed Orgeron, and you have the X's and O's guys like Gary Patterson. And Ed Orgeron is a motivator, but a motivator has to have good coordinators and good players. Dabo Swinney is a motivator. Dabo Swinney is a motivator, right? He doesn't really do much coaching. He's just kind of there to like be the CEO and just motivate people and make sure the coordinators are on schedule and everything. Ed Orgeron's the same way. And so these motivators they're not good coaches. They aren't. Put them at a private school. Like if Dabo Swinney coached at Wake Forest, he wouldn't be able to win 4 games. If Ed Orgeron coached at I don't know, TCU, he wouldn't win. These motivators really exist to recruit and just be the figurehead. The coordinators do all the work, and that's my issue with LSU, and that's why I'm not surprised that they're struggling with Missouri right now. Why they lost their first game is that their head coach he needs too much in place to succeed, and he does not have it this year. But hey, at least you can bet it all in Delaware. No, my model doesn't take into account crowds. But at least you can bet in Delaware at all, right? I drove through Delaware on my road trip. He did good at USC because he's a motivator. The problem with USC when he took over is that Lane Kiffin is an X's and O's guy, and he lost the team. The talent was not the issue. So what a motivator with good talent can win. But they're not X's and O's guys, so they have to beat teams by brute strength of talent alone. Ed Orgeron is not going to out scheme you. He's not going to out adjust you. But if you have the talent and you can rally them together and get them all on the same page, you can win games. They're just not going to do it via the X's and O's. That's the thing with motivators. They only work at schools like LSU and USC where they're going to get good talent no matter what. Like a blind wet monkey could coach at LSU and get 5-star recruits, because Louisiana is a very rich state for talent. You're not, a lot of 4 and 5 stars in state that grew up watching LSU, and they're going to go there regardless of who the coach is. It's not hard to recruit to a school like LSU, so you already know you're going to have good players. So you just need to make sure you can keep them all together, and that's what a motivator is for. And if you have good coordinators like they had last year, You're going to win a lot of games. But only so many schools have that luxury to be able to get away with hiring a coordinator, a motivator. Yeah, I still haven't paid my Delaware toll. This is my Delaware toll. It's because I have to mail it in. I can't pay it online. And, I was like, screw that. I mean, I'll mail it in eventually, but, I don't have any envelopes or stationery or anything, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But, yep, Delaware toll. It's stupid. They didn't take credit cards. Like, the tolls in New York didn't take credit cards, the tolls in New Jersey didn't take credit cards, and the tolls in Delaware didn't. And I didn't have any cash with me. Like, it's 2020. But at least with New York and New Jersey, I was able to pay them online, but not Delaware. Man, I need a Kleenex. I'll be right back. Yeah, the thing with the road trip is I haven't gotten it to in the video series yet, but something happened midway through the road trip that kind of took the wind out of the sails of the road trip. You'll see it when I get there, but it kind of like, something happened in the middle of the trip. All right, 4th and 16 for Oklahoma. All right, North Carolina's doing what they need to do. I have a bet on them. Yeah, minus 200, but it's looking good. Texas, they're tied. I think those are the only two games I have going on right now. Yeah, I'm surprised that Virginia's getting spanked. And Army, I mean, their schedule is stupid. How many FCS teams are they playing? 4? That's ridiculous. All right, so is Texas going to try to... So Texas was in the same situation last week. They are down by 9. They had the ball with about a minute and a half to go in the half, and they threw an interception, and TCU was able to add 3 more points before halftime. So the question is Tom Herman going to be aggressive this week? Because they're in the same... I think they have to. They have good field position. But they threw that interception last week in the same situation. Yeah, they had the ball in the 42 with a minute 34. Oklahoma's defense is not as good as TCU's, so... I just remember Oklahoma fans last year were like really hyping Alex Grinch, their new defensive coordinator, and they're like, oh, he's turned our defense around. Not so fast, my friend. Their defense honestly doesn't look that much better than it was under Mark Stoops. Man, Texas just almost turned the ball over. Like I'm telling you, they just can't do these 2-minute drills. They turned it over against us last week twice. Yeah, good that you use R. R is good. I wish I wish I was better at Python. And my job is actually carving out time for me to focus solely on Python once political season is over, so I can get better at that. Yeah, I'm very busy with work right now with political season, and I don't just do politics. I do sports as well, so I have to do sports audience analytics as well. Yeah, between that and politics, it's just been very overwhelming at work, which is why I don't have a lot of time to do other things. Will I use R for NCAA basketball? I don't know. I really don't have any need. I already have everything built out in Excel. I didn't port my college football model over to R, so I don't see what I would for college basketball. It's a linear regression model. If it was a Monte Carlo model, like my baseball one, yes, but a linear regression model doesn't really. It's not. It's not that complicated. So, my full-time job, I work for a major broadcast company. I am the number 2 consumer engagement and audience analytics guy. I oversee a team of media analysts around the country that do, market research, audience engagement, media analytics, focus grouping, all that type of stuff for 64 different broadcast TV stations. So a lot of these. So looping back into politics, I do a lot of coordinating media campaigns for these political campaigns, as well as some of them will have us do polls, focus groups, surveys, stuff like that. So that's my background in polling. That's why I was talking about politics so much earlier, because I'm doing a lot of political related stuff for work right now, and so I'm just giving my I was just giving my 2 cents on how I feel like the media polls out there do not accurately reflect what I'm seeing. Yeah, I've risen the ladder pretty quickly. Like I said, 6 years ago, I was living in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I was doing audience media analytics for one TV station in Iowa, and now 6 years later, I'm the number 2 for a major broadcast company, overseeing a team of analysts that do it for 64 stations. So, no, I majored in broadcast journalism, guys. Yep. Everything I do, data science related, is in statistics is self-taught. When I lived in Las Vegas, I got really good at that type of stuff. I taught myself. The thing with esports is, I'm sure there's profitable ways to do it, but it just doesn't interest me personally. But if they have statistics and they have a self-contained ecosystem of statistics you can get for esports, by all means make a model for it. But that's kind of thing, like, you need a self-contained ecosystem. By that I mean like Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is an ecosystem. So if the New York Mets played a baseball game against a team outside the MLB, right, that wouldn't count. So all these esports teams, like, are they in a league, or do they just kind of play random? That's what you need, a self-contained ecosystem so you can measure teams apples to apples. If you have the ability to do that for esports, by all means bet on it, if you can create a model. I loved living in Las Vegas, but that's when I worked in sports radio, and I just didn't like the industry anymore. It doesn't pay very well, and I just morally couldn't do it anymore with all the touts. But I loved living there, and I'd like to move back someday. We have a station in Las Vegas, the company I work for, but they have me based in San Diego for some reason. But like I said, now that we're like remote, I actually asked if I could move to Las Vegas, and they said no. But I don't see why not. We're remote. We can work from anywhere. Why do I have to stay in San Diego? But hopefully they'll change their mind. That's why I'm living in this garage apartment now. I refuse to commit to a long-term lease in San Diego until it's actually all this work from home stuff is over. I do believe that some sports are rigged. People will call me a conspiracy theory, but I think the NBA finals are rigged. I think the NBA playoffs are rigged to an extent. I don't think that they're like completely scripted like pro wrestling, but I do think that the refs call a game to influence certain outcomes. I don't believe that's changed. I believe that's been the case for probably the past 20 years. It's just you can't. It's hard. That's why I don't like betting on the NBA because of that reason. Because even with the model, you're not going to be able to account for that stuff. It's just you don't know which way the NBA is going to lean on that type of stuff. But I could tell you this. Like I said, it's part of what I do for a living. I'll pull it up right now. I don't think it really matters. I don't know if the NBA is rigging it this year because I don't think it really matters because their ratings suck. So here's Game 4 of the NBA Finals ratings. Whoops. So let me pull up the household rating. So these are household ratings. Every market is down like an average of 46% from last year, except for Miami and West Palm Beach, which makes sense. That's where the Heat are at, right? But even like San Diego, you think that would be a big Lakers market? That's the closest team to San Diego. They're down 41% year over year. These ratings suck for the NBA right now. So I don't think rigging it to get LeBron in the finals mattered. So I don't know if they're rigging right now, but I think they do rig. The main reason I do college sports is because it interests me the most. If I'm going to be betting on something, I want it to be something that interests me, and I'm just more interested in college football and basketball than I am the NBA and NFL. That's the main reason. But honestly, I think the markets in the NBA and NFL are sharper and therefore harder to get an edge in. So it's kind of a double whammy. What is the best prediction website or tipping service? None. They all suck. If I was to change majors, I would have majored in computer science. I, to be honest with you, I still regret it to this day. I mean, but when I picked broadcast journalism as a major, I was 18 years old. Uh, the industry was way different than it is today, and I didn't know. It's the industry is a lot different than it was in 2006. Newspapers were still relevant in 2006, and TV ratings were higher in 2006, so more people were employed as journalists and reporters and that type of stuff. And that's just not the case these days. It's a very competitive industry. These journalism schools are cranking out hundreds of journalism majors a year, and there's only so many jobs. And so that's why the pay is so low for the journalism side of the industry, because it's so competitive and people are willing to take garbage salaries just to get their foot in the door. And that's why I moved over to the analytics data science side. That's where the money's at. But yeah, it's still something I kind of regret to this day. I should have majored in computer science, but I didn't. It is what it is. I've been able to overcome it, but I do wish I was more well-rounded in that type of stuff. I'm able to teach myself a lot of it, but I don't have that foundation. And actually, when I was done with TCU, they wanted me to be a grad assistant for the football team, and I said no. And I've always wondered, I don't think I had the temperament at the time to do it. That's kind of like something I kind of had to develop professionally. Was the right temperament and attitude to work in a professional setting, and I don't think I would have been able to do that with TCU football as a grad assistant right out of college. Ratings are down across the board for TV, yes. They spiked a little bit in March and April in the evening because of all the coronavirus stuff, but a lot of people are tuning out. Yeah, TV ratings are just down across the board. Younger viewers are not watching, and it's mostly older viewers that watch. And I've always said you can blame that. I've always said it this way. You can blame younger viewers cutting the cord and going to streaming and just not watching all you want. But ultimately, it comes down to our product, and I think the product sucks. I think the product sucks, and it's just as much. If local news produced a good product, people would watch it. But they don't. It sucks. And they don't want to learn their lesson. That's my main issue with local news these days. Trust me, this is the industry I work in. I'm not trashing it, but the product sucks, and people don't want to tune in to the news and just hear constant negativity over and over again. Like, I'll tune into the news, and I feel like their goal is to scare the crap out of us about coronavirus. That's all it is. Their goal is to scare the crap out of everybody, and people are sick of it, and that's why they're not watching. And you think TV ratings should be up because so many people are still locked in their homes, can't really do anything, things are still shut down, but that's not what's happening, guys. People are finding other things to do than watch TV, and like I said, the product sucks, and we have no one to blame but ourselves. But what am I? All I do is focus groups and research and all this stuff, right? What would I know? Why do I think ratings are down on the NBA? Two reasons. One, no crowds. Trust me, the no crowds things tunes out. The casual viewer is not going to tune in. Like, crowds are more important than anything because, like I said, no crowds, it just doesn't feel as important. And when it doesn't feel as important, then only the hardcore is going to watch. From what I've noticed breaking down football ratings and NBA ratings is that people are watching their local teams. The ratings are still down, but not as much. So local teams' ratings are down, but only a little bit. But if it's not the local team, people aren't tuning in. The casual viewer they don't feel like the games are as important. And number two, the reason I think NBA ratings are down, this is going to be controversial, but I do think the social justice messaging is turning a lot of people off. In 2017, we focus grouped this stuff. We did market research surveys for the NFL kneeling. Trust me, you have 1 in 5 people who say they're not going to watch anymore because of that, and you're like, oh, it's only 20%, but that's a big deal. That when you're talking about a 20% decrease in viewership, that's like thousands of dollars of advertising revenue that's being lost. And so people are tuning out because of the kneeling and the social justice messaging and Black Lives Matter being put on the court of NBA games. Trust me, guys, I do this for a living. That is a major reason why ratings are down. People don't want to tune in to be badgered with political messaging. It would be the equivalent of someone used this analogy when we were focus grouping, and I think it is a very good one. You know, like I said, focus groups, you pay people to do focus groups, so you're going to get a lower end clientele for it. But it is what it is. And so one of the guys we were focus grouping said, and he was a black man, right? He was a black man. He said it like the NBA forcing all this social justice messaging on us, you know, like Black Lives Matter on the court and like the names on the back of the jersey and stuff. He said it's the equivalent of you going to a strip club and getting a lap dance and the stripper campaigning for their political candidate of choice while they're giving you a lap dance. He said that's exactly what it is. And you'd be like, if that were to happen, if you paid for a lap dance at a strip club and like your stripper was just all like going off on their political soapbox on you, wouldn't you like I didn't pay you to do that. I paid you to give me a lap dance, right? That's exactly what it is in the NBA. That's what the guy in the focus group said, and he's right. Yeah, local news ratings, like, they're fighting over such a small pie these days. You know, it has changed fast. Like, when I was in Iowa, like, the number one TV station in the market in Iowa did about a 15 to 20 rating, which means about 15 to 20% of the TV household population in the market was tuning in to the newscast. And that was 6 years ago in Iowa, but most local news does like maybe a 2 household rating these days. Maybe. And adults 25-54, which is what ad rates are based off of, is even less than that. So they're really fighting over a very small pie. And like I said, they can blame demographic shifts and cord cutting and stream. They can blame that all they want. But like I said, if you build it, they will come. And the product, local news product, sucks. It sucks. And if my employers end up watching the stream and hear me saying this, I'm just shooting it like it is. It's my job to be in tune with these things. And if you guys are gonna discipline me for talking crap about our product, ratings tell the story, guys. If it was a good product, more people would watch. I don't think the Bucks being in the finals would have improved ratings. I don't think the Heat draw a very big. What's funny is that ratings in Miami are barely higher. than the Raptors and Warriors last year in Miami. Like, so the Heat play in Miami, and their ratings are only like 5-10% higher than the Raptors and Warriors last year in Miami. So even people in Miami don't care. Yes, that's exactly why Adam Silver is not doing the messaging next year, because it's you cannot deny the fact that it's a major factor. You can't. I Like I said, we've focus grouped this, we've pulled it. It's a major factor, and the NFL's already walked back. Like, the NFL instructed their guys after the first week to cut it out. It's toxic. You can still get local news on streaming boxes, though. Cutting the cord only affects cable. Local news is broadcast. You get that on anything you have. People just aren't tuning in. The thing with social justice is it's not that people disagree with the message, it's just they disagree with the frequency. Like, if you're watching TV and you get nothing but political ads every commercial break, you're going to get sick of it after a while, even if you agree with them, right? And it's the same thing with the messaging. Even people that agree with it just think it's overkill. That's the main issue. Yep. So Texas did not score before halftime. But like, I do think the major reason that ratings are down is the lack of crowds. I do think when crowds come back that they'll go up, but there's a sizable number of people that are not going to tune in because they feel betrayed. Illegal streams do not factor into ratings. So how the ratings work is that there's two main rating services. You have Nielsen and you have ComScore. Nielsen uses what they call a panel. So, like, in every market, they have, between 600 and 1,200 people that are part of the panel that feed the ratings for that market. And then they have a national panel that is about 30,000 people across the country. But in some of Nielsen's smaller markets, they use return path data, which is pretty much data collected from cable and satellite providers to help assist with the panels. ComScore, on the other hand, is 100% return path data from cable and satellite boxes, and then they have to model for over-the-air only homes. But Nielsen is trying to incorporate what they call broadband-only homes, so not cable, not satellite, not antenna, but people who stream. So like YouTube TV, Hulu TV, Sling, those services. Nielsen is starting to incorporate those in their sample, but it's still in the beta testing phase. They call it the impact phase, so it's not official yet. But the issue with accounting for streaming homes is that it's actually not going to increase ratings. People think it will, but it's not. Here's why. The broadband only homes were not a part of the universe, the household TV household universe, right? They didn't count. So the universe is only made up of over-the-air homes, cable homes, and satellite homes. Broadband-only homes are not a part of that pool. So when you're adding the broadband-only homes to that pool, you're expanding the overall universe. You're expanding the denominator. So yes, you're going to get more viewers, but since the universe expanded, the rating, which is a percentage of viewership, is going to go down. Ratings will go down, viewership will go up. So the industry is trying to move to using viewers instead of ratings, and the ad agencies are resisting that. The ad agencies want to stay on rating and not viewership. Do I watch tennis and soccer? I'll watch the majors in tennis. Soccer, I have not watched a soccer game since 2014 when the U.S. was in the World Cup. That was the last time. I've never bet either sport before. Um, Soccer just doesn't interest me. Uh, like, I lived in Seattle and the Sounders were a big deal there, and I went to a game one time and it's not for me. There's a certain demographic that soccer appeals to. I'm not a part of that demographic. Same with Louisville. They had like a minor league soccer team in Louisville. It was called like Louisville FC. I think that's what it was. They actually built a new stadium recently for that, but like I said, there's a certain type of person that likes soccer in America, and I'm not that type of person. But I'll watch the U.S. in the World Cup, but that's about it. Yeah. Yeah. So the Circa Sportsbook is really, they think they're trying to overtake the Westgate. Circa is swinging a big stick. I went to the Circa last year and it was still under construction. My main issue with Circa though is that they host touts. They had, if you watch one of my Las Vegas videos last year when I went to Circa, they have a section of the Circa area that has a radio booth, and there's a guy in there who's touting. They host radio touts there, and so that's my main issue with them. At least I think Westgate hosts touts too, but more for like web streaming. So it's not like Westgate's hands are clean either there. But yeah, I think Circa. I'm really interested to see how Circa turns out because they have been hyping that sportsbook up. I worked for Sinclair in Iowa. That was the company I worked for. Sinclair Broadcast. Um, the TV station I worked at in Iowa was fine. They didn't come across as biased to me. Um, the thing is, everyone thinks Sinclair is pushing the stuff on the stations. They don't. Every TV station is pretty independent. So it's not like Sinclair at the top is directing what these individual stations to do. That's not how it works. Um, all Sinclair really does is manage the sales side. They just care about the revenue and bottom line. They pretty much let the news directors at the individual stations do their own thing. That's the case with Sinclair. That's the case with Raycom. As far as Scripps is concerned, the current company I work for, the content strategy is a little bit more coordinated from the top. I can tell you that. Um, but Scripps claims to be in the journalism business and not in the TV business, right? Sinclair, the only thing Sinclair cares about is money. Um, so as long as the sales are doing fine, as long as they're hitting sales targets and everything, they don't care what the product is. Scripps is a lot more in tune with what they want the product to be. But I worked for Sinclair in Iowa, and I had no problems with them. I thought they were fair. What's the effect of consolidation on local TV ratings? Um, like I said, if it's a product people want to watch, they will watch it. It's just that, like I said, TV is more fragmented these days with streaming and cable, and also people just have more forms of entertainment these days. Um, that's a fact. But I'm just tired of people blaming that alone for dropping ratings. Make a better product. People will watch it, guys. Yeah, so I'm probably about another hour, and then I'll wrap it up. Because, I want to watch the TCU game. Not be distracted. Go get some food and everything. Georgia, Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee's that good, guys. They're on a winning streak, but it's all against bad teams. Like, I'm gonna go through the schedule they played last year to end the year. All right, so their winning streak was South Carolina at home. They suck. UAB at home. They weren't that good. They beat Kentucky on the road. Okay, that was kind of a big win. They beat Missouri on the road. They weren't any good last year. And then they beat Vanderbilt. They suck. And then in their bowl game, they played Indiana and won by a point. And then this year, they played South Carolina on the road, who hasn't been that good, and then they played Missouri at home. So none of these teams they have beaten in this win streak have been anywhere close to top 25 teams, guys. And today's prove it day for them. I don't think Georgia's that good either, but I don't think Tennessee is that good. I think Tennessee is about to get a reality check. The Vanderbilt line, don't they play, who do they play today? Vanderbilt's just not it. South Carolina, yeah, they're playing South Carolina, and South Carolina was up last time I looked. Yeah, UL Monroe. That's last year was the year for UL Monroe. They had the senior quarterback Caleb Evans, and they had some pretty good skill position players. But their problem was defense. And UL Monroe last year, they just have never been able to put together defensively. And remember last year when they played Florida State and lost in overtime? Yeah, that was their chance, and they blew it, and they went 5-7, didn't go to a bowl, and they just lost too many guys from last year to be competitive this year. And I'm just surprised at how much they've fallen off, though. Like they're the worst team in the Division One this year. Man, Colin Hill is still playing quarterback for South Carolina. How long has he been there for? God, 2016. Jeez. So he's a fifth-year senior. I remember he was their quarterback in 2016 when I was in Las Vegas, and I needed them to complete the last leg of a four-team parlay, and they hit a field goal with no time left. And he was their quarterback then. And that feels like a long time ago. I'm surprised he's still playing. I think South Carolina ended up being I don't know how big of a favorite they were. They were a 13-point favorite, so that's still up in the air. But I'm surprised Army is losing right now. They usually beat these FCS teams pretty bad, but they are playing Citadel, who runs the same type of offense, so maybe Citadel is used to stopping it. That's the thing with triple option offenses is most teams just aren't ready to stop it. But if you prepare to stop it, you can beat it. So at TCU, we would practice for Air Force in the spring, and we would practice for them every week until we played them. Because to beat a triple option team, it's all about practice. It's all about assignment football. And so a lot of these teams do not take triple option offenses seriously and don't prepare well enough for them, and then they look silly. Because if you don't prepare enough to stop a triple option offense, you're going to get beat. Yeah, I just remember Air Force Week I got 3 concussions when I was at TCU, and 2 of them happened during Air Force Week. Because Coach Patterson would tell us on scout team, he was like, the only way we can prepare for Air Force is for you guys to run their offense at full speed. Like, he wanted us to run the Air Force triple option offense as fast as possible. Like, full speed, just like Air Force was. Because if you run at half speed or, like, not 100%, you're going to play Air Force in the actual game, and it's going to be a lot faster, and you're going to be caught flat-footed. So he would drill it into us to run at full speed. And so oftentimes this would be illegal now. You get a penalty for it now, but what Air Force does is a lot of blindside blocks and crack blocks, and so that would be kind of like my role on scout team was to be a crack blocker. And when you're doing that at full, and Coach Patterson wanted the guys that we were crack blocking to take the blocks head on. And so a lot of times it would be me running to crack block the safety or whatever, and we would engage, big collision, and that's how I got 2 concussions. One of them was Johnny Fobbs, and the other one was T.J. Johnson that gave me the concussion. But that's why a lot of these triple option offenses humiliate these lower teams a lot. But yeah, I ran a triple option offense in high school, so I knew exactly how it works. So that was always one of my favorite weeks of the year because I kind of got to be like the consultant on the triple option. A lot of teams are better than they play in the first week because, like I told you guys, a lot of teams look bad in their first week because you're not in a routine. The routine is very important when it comes to college football, and Urban Meyer touched on this last week. When you're not able to establish a solid routine, it's just very hard to get adjusted. So a lot of these teams in their first game look bad because they were not in a routine. And I think that's what happened to Iowa State. I think that's what happened to Kansas State. I think that's what happened to TCU. I think that's what happened to Texas Tech and Texas A&M, and all these other teams look terrible in their first game. LSU, a routine is very important. And I think Iowa State's better, but I don't know if they're that good. I think they're like probably a top 20 caliber team, but I don't think they're a Big 12 champ. I don't think they're good enough to win the league. Man, this LSU defense is terrible. Missouri's defense bad as too. But we knew they weren't any good. And the one thing that surprises me is how so many. I'm surprised with these teams like Oklahoma that have already lost twice and have nothing to play for anymore. I'm surprised a lot of these players have not opted out of the season, because I don't know how eligibility works, but I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that like you don't. It doesn't count as using a year of eligibility if you play this year. So I'm surprised that some of these players haven't opted out. You know, you've lost twice already. No playoffs, no conference title. What's there to play for, right? So, and by opt out, I mean like seniors and stuff. I don't know. If I was a senior and this is my last year and I knew I wasn't going to play in the NFL, I wouldn't want to opt out. I just want to finish it up. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking into things. Houston looked good, but yeah, they played Tulane, who I don't think is that good. Jury's still out on a team like Houston. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. The AAC is really hurt this year by not being able to play non-conference games. Or they have, but they're just not able to play a lot against the Power 5. And outside of UCF beating Georgia Tech, I don't think they have any other wins against the Power 5. So we really have no idea how good any of these AAC teams are going to be. Like, I wasn't surprised UCF lost to Tulsa. UCF is a gimmick team. Cincinnati, I don't think they're that good either. I don't think SMU is that good. Like I said, the AAC it's a double-edged sword. So a lot of these teams not playing Power 5 teams are preventing themselves from being exposed as being not that good. But at the same time, we're never going to know if they're actually good or not. But I think if TCU and SMU didn't have their game canceled, and like say we ended up rescheduling that game, and TCU played SMU, I don't know, in November, December, I think we would beat SMU by probably about 10 to 14 points. That's how I see it. Yeah, Tulsa. I told you guys, Tulsa is my under the radar team this year, and I said that on my first video that I made. They play good defense and they have an experienced quarterback. They were 4-8 last year, but they were all close losses, heartbreaking losses. A lot of them were. So I wouldn't be surprised if they win their division, AAC West. They don't play Memphis. They get SMU at home. So keep an eye on Tulsa. I think OU is about to score. Or not, tackled at the 30. Good pursuit by Texas's defense. Yeah, Florida's starting to open it up, but A&M is threatening here. I'm going to laugh. Like I said this at the beginning of the stream, but I'm going to laugh if A&M loses this game. They could never win the big SEC home games. They never can. They always fall flat, and this is supposed to be A&M's year. The schedule, at least before COVID, the schedule was very favorable. They had a senior quarterback. This was year number 3 of Jimbo, who was supposed to turn them around immediately. And I don't think they're going to be happy starting 1 and 2. That wasn't supposed to happen. Like, their schedule's hard. I don't think they were ever going to win the road game at Alabama, which was on the schedule before COVID. But apart from that, they could have easily gone 11-1. The schedule wasn't that hard. Their crossover games were Vanderbilt and South Carolina. Their non-conference was a joke. So really the only hard game on the schedule was a road game at Alabama. They got LSU at home, and LSU is rebuilding. Like, according to all my A&M friends, if they lost 2 games, it would have been a disappointment. And they're down by 4 right now. But if they lose to Florida, that's 2 losses, and that they told me 2 losses would be a disappointment. That's not what it's not what they're paying Jimbo Fisher $10 million a year for. Um, but yeah, whoever is on the live stream that said they took A&M +6, I mean, you're looking okay right now. Man. I'm trying to I'm gonna play the A&M game on my phone on the data, and not the Wi-Fi, because I don't want to overload this Wi-Fi here. The reason I don't show the games on the as they're playing is because my stream would be taken down if I did that. I got a copyright strike on one of my videos. It was my it wasn't a copyright strike, but it was a copyright claim, and it was my Westgate review video, and I'm like, who? But they won't tell me. I'm like, who claimed a copyright on my Westgate review video? I mean, I was just reviewing the Westgate sportsbook. I mean, maybe one of the screens had something copyrighted on there, but that's random. I've never had a copyright claim on any of my videos before. Yeah, OU just scored. South Carolina's up by 17. LSU scored on a 75-yard touchdown pass. There's two terrible... Everyone hates on the Big 12 for not playing defense, and I think that's a myth. But no one ever hates on like games like this LSU-Missouri game about the SEC not playing defense. 38-31, and it's barely even the third quarter. Where's the SEC doesn't play defense stereotype? Yeah, the spread was 14. I would not lay 14 on the road. LSU on the road. That was asking too much. But I didn't play either side, but that's ridiculous. So yeah, TCU's wearing their red uniforms today. I don't know what I think about that. When I was there, at least for my first year, all we did was wear purple jerseys and black pants. And then we played BYU my sophomore year. They were undefeated and ranked number 9, and so we wore black jerseys for that game, and it was a big deal. And then my junior year, we played Utah, and we got new uniforms from Nike for that game. And ever since then, it seems like we have all these crazy uniforms like Oregon. I like the uniforms we wore against Oregon State my senior year, though. It was the white helmets and the black jerseys and pants. That was pretty cool. Or the white pants that look like a lizard skin. That was pretty cool. We played them at the AT&T Stadium. Yeah, playing at AT&T Stadium was it's just practicing there was weird because we practiced there a few times before that game, and it was practicing there was weird because it's like you're playing like a big cave, and everything echoed, and it was crazy. Like compared to where we played Boise, the Fiesta Bowl, that was it was an indoor, it was loud, indoor stadium, packed, full house. Man, did A&M just get a sack? If I get copyrighted for this, I'm sorry, but I have it on my phone. I don't do any trading or investing. It's just like I said, I don't feel like I'm well versed enough in that stuff to bother. I've heard too many stories of my friends that just tried to get into that and they lost a lot of money just because they don't know what they're doing, and it's just I just invest into my 401k and IRA and leave it at that. Iowa State went from 12 to 14. Well, that's not surprising because I'm on Iowa State minus 12.5, and my model had it at a. What did my model have it as? Enough to where I bet Iowa State. There it was. My model had it at Iowa State at about 16. So yeah, I'm not surprised at all until I moved to 14. So it looks like I got a good number there at 12 and a half. The Big 12 doesn't prioritize defense. I don't know about that. I know at least where I played at TCU, that was our identity, and it still is defense. The Big 12 plays faster. They don't. The Big 12 doesn't care about time of possession as much. So the offenses play faster. That means more snaps, more possessions, and naturally, if you have to defend more snaps and possessions, you're going to give up more yards and points. I mean, that's just like when we played Baylor in 2014, and the final score was 61-58. Yeah, giving up 61 points sounds like a lot, but Baylor had 22 possessions. The average football team has 12 to 13 possessions in a game, so basically we had to defend almost 8 quarters worth of football against Baylor's offense, which was the number one offense in the country that year. And actually only giving up 61 points in 22 possessions is pretty good. That's less than 3 points per possession. So that's kind of how it works in the Big 12. Is the pace is a bigger deal. Teams play faster, so it just means you have to defend more. In the SEC and Big Ten, time of possession and running the clock matters more, so it means less plays, less snaps, less possessions to defend. But that's what a good model is going to do. It's going to take into that into account and neutralize all that stuff. Tempo-free stats, TCU had a top 20 defense last year. We were number one in the country in tempo-free defense in 2014, and that was the same year we gave up 61 points against Baylor. But when you account on a per-possession basis, though, 61 points, 22 possessions, that's less than 3 points per possession. Adjust it by the fact you're playing the best offense in the country, Baylor. We were number one in the country in per-possession defense in 2014. Yeah, trading and sports betting have a lot of parallels. You have touts and trading. But I've had friends and stuff like who get into stock trading and stuff, think it's easy, think it's like a get rich quick scheme, and they lose money. And I just like sports betting and stock trading. The one thing they have in common is you have to be patient and you have to take it slow. It's about the long run, not the short run. And if you try to focus too much on the short run and get too greedy, you're gonna be ruined. That's the similarities between the two. Man, 3rd and 16 for Florida here. I mean, it looks like, just based on what I see, the A&M stands are pretty full. I don't know how many people are there, but this is one of the bigger crowds I've seen this year. And good for them. Good for them, Like, I've been saying this all along. If you're afraid of getting COVID, don't go to a sporting event. If you're afraid of spreading it to somebody, don't go to a sporting event. Otherwise, you should be allowed to do what you want to do. Live your life. If you come into frequent contact with someone who would be at risk, don't go. If you're afraid of getting it, if you're an at-risk person, don't go. But me, I don't come into a lot of contact with people who are at risk with COVID. I already got COVID, so I'm not afraid of getting it. So why should someone like me be prevented from going to a sporting event? Yeah, I had COVID I tested positive for the antibodies. So I don't know when I had it, but if I had to guess, I had it in January. Because I went to the doctor in January to be tested for something that was bothering me, and they didn't know what it was. They just knew it was a virus. They didn't know what it was, right? But I was fine for the most part. I had the sniffles a little bit. I had a rash, but I was fine. And then my work was offering an antibody test for University of California, San Diego, and I went and got it and tested positive. And I was like, I had to have had it in January. That's what it was. But I have the antibodies, so I have no risk of getting it or spreading it to anybody. And so that's just how it is. Yeah, I've had people like argue with me in my YouTube comment sections and Twitter posts and stuff about that. And like I said, I'm not anti-mask. I'm not, I just feel like the damage that's being done with lockdowns and everything, is far greater than the damage being done by the virus. Like the Fort Worth Stock Show just got canceled, and that brings in millions of dollars to the city's economy, right? That's the type of damage I'm talking about. And suicides, depressions, broken marriages, broken households, foreclosure, all that stuff that's a result of these lockdowns, I think it's doing more damage than the virus itself. My sister is a nurse in Brooklyn, and she isn't buying. She doesn't think it's as bad as the virus is being portrayed to be. And she will make an appearance on my road trip videos. Yeah, Trading Truth channel, like a channel about stock trading. That would be funny. Um, that's the thing, though. I mean, I just don't feel like I'm well versed in that stuff. I don't have the background. Like I said, I just invest in a 401k and IRA and leave it at that. I'm trying to save up money for a down payment on a house. It's just that I don't want to. Obviously, I won't be moving into a house until I have enough money for a down payment, first of all, and second of all, until all this COVID stuff is over with. Like, that's why I'm living in this garage apartment right now. It's a temporary house, temporary housing for me, because I don't want to commit to anything until I know what. Either my job says, okay, it's time to go back to work in person, or okay, you're remote work permanently now. One of those two things happen, then I can start making plans. But I will say this, if my job says I have to go back to work in person in San Diego, I am going to, how do I put it this way? If that happens, I probably shouldn't be tipping my hand. I doubt people that I work with will watch the stream, but you never know. But if they're like, okay, it's time to come back to work in San Diego, I'm going to say I'll probably do it, but I will start looking for other jobs. That's how badly I don't want to go back to San Diego. I mean, it's not like I haven't left, but like, that's how I just want to get out of the city. I don't want to be locked down to the city anymore. I'm ready to move on, and I don't see myself staying here long term. So, I want to buy a house and stuff like that, and it's not going to be in San Diego, so I need to get out of San Diego. So, if but like I said, my company has stations all over the country. Like I could work from anywhere that my company is based in. So if they really want to keep me, then they would have to agree to let me move if they want to keep me, because I'm not going to stay here in San Diego much longer. I don't like it here. I've never left the country. I've never been overseas. I've never left the country. I mean, I've been to Alaska. That's probably as close to leaving the country as I've gotten. I've been to the border of Canada and Mexico. I mean, but I've never actually left the country. I don't have a passport. That's kind of the thing. Like, I don't know. I've just never really had any interest in traveling internationally. I feel like there's so much of the country I haven't seen before in the United States. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know how much. Yeah, I've just never been interested in traveling internationally. That's all. If I did, though, I'd probably want to go to a place like Australia, somewhere in the southern hemisphere. Australia, New Zealand, the South Pacific. That's probably where it would be. All right, Texas A&M is starting to drive here. $19 viewers. I don't know how many viewers I have right now. I mean, I'm just glad it's better than 0. I don't really care how many people are watching. Yeah, the U.S. is big, and I just did my road trip, 34 states in however many days. 34 states in 15 days, so I got to see a lot of the country. I've been to every state now except Hawaii. I was actually supposed to go to Hawaii for back in August, but that got, I wasn't allowed to, so that's why I did the road trip instead. Man, if Texas loses this game, I don't see that's the thing. I don't think they can fire Tom Herman because his buyout is so big, but they're gonna they're gonna be so mad if Texas loses this game to an Oklahoma team that has looked dead in the water this year. Like Texas has no excuse to lose this game, none. But yeah, I'm actually kind of interested to see how this A&M game plays out. You know, I said I'd end at 2 o'clock, but I might I'll probably go to the end of the A&M game. I'm just meeting some people at 3 o'clock for the TCU game. So that's why I have to leave. I have food to pick up and stuff. Oh man, are they gonna give him that catch in the Oklahoma game? Yeah, they did. I don't know. I'd review that one. I don't know if he had control. Yeah, I don't think he had control there. I don't know. Yeah, that's that. He didn't have control. They have to overturn that. Are they not going to review that? They didn't review that. He did not have control. I'm surprised. Wow. Wow. Good job, Big 12 refs. Favorite major U.S. city apart from Las Vegas? That is a great question. Major. What's your definition of major U.S. city? Yeah, Las Vegas would probably be a top choice for me to buy a house. Um, yeah, Vegas property prices are pretty high. I look regularly. They're higher than DFW, Dallas. Yeah, and it's because of people coming from California. You're exactly right. Um, yeah, you say major U.S. city though. It depends on what you mean by major. Like, um, gosh, because if you watch my videos, you'll hear me say I'm not really a big fan of cities. I'm more of like a smaller rural area guy. But major U.S. city, hmm, that's a good one. Like I said, it depends on what you mean by major, though. I like St. Louis. I really do like St. Louis. Um, St. Louis is definitely up there. But really, like a lot of my favorite cities would be considered like mid-sized, like Boise, Salt Lake City, um, Louisville, Omaha, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Um, God, like places like that are more my alley. I like Cincinnati, Kansas City, Charleston, South Carolina. Uh, those are more my alley. Des Moines, I love Des Moines, Iowa. But where was I going with this? Portland. I'm going to talk about Portland. When I lived in Seattle, I also had an office in Portland, so I'd go there a lot, and I liked Portland. If you can get past the idiots that live there, it's a good city. It's just that there are so many idiots that live there. Yep. Same with Seattle. Like Seattle, I didn't really like living in Seattle. It was a little bit too expensive. Too many homeless people. The weather wasn't great most of the year, but I like Portland a lot more than I like Seattle. But both places had your share of idiots. You know, Seattle, I wanted to be there 2 years, but I actually left a little bit before the 2 years was up because I lived in an apartment in downtown Seattle on the street where every single political march under the sun occurred. No matter what the issue is, it happened on this street. And I walk to work every day, and I would just get entangled in that stuff too much. I was assaulted multiple times because I was just in the wrong place, wrong time. And I beat the crap out of somebody one day walking home from work. Like, just blood. I don't know what happened to the guy because he ran off, but I got some good shots. I beat the crap out of this guy one day because he messed with me. I was not in the mood. And some guy with a bandana over his face runs up to me. They're having some march. He runs up to me with his group. It was Antifa, by the way. It was in 2017. He runs up to me with his group of Antifa friends, and he's like, "Do you think Black Lives Matter?" And I just said, "Hey, man, I'm just trying to walk home from work. Leave me alone." That's all I said. And he sucker punches me. But he was weak. It was a weak punch. It didn't really rattle me that much. And on a normal day, I would have just let it go. But I was not in the mood that day, and I beat the ever-loving crap out of this guy. And then I was surrounded by all these Antifa guys who were starting to like throw things at me. And then the Seattle police had to intervene, and the Seattle Fire Department had to intervene, and they took me away. And they brought me into the fire station, and they bandaged me up because I was getting attacked from all sides after beating the crap out of this guy. And that was the decision. That was the day I decided to leave Seattle. And 2 weeks later, I got my job in Louisville, and I was out. Stuff like that happened too much, and I just was tired of it. Yep. I still, it was funny because when I was beating the crap out of this guy, I tried to record it because just in case I needed it for self-defense. But I didn't really get the best angles and stuff, so really the only thing you can see is me sitting on the ground, like, yelling at these people to like get away. I'd show it to you guys if there's anything to it. All right, so A&M just scored, so they just took the lead. Yeah, I'll probably hang on until the end of this A&M game. And OU's driving; they can go up by 2 touchdowns. If Texas loses this game, no excuse at all. No excuse for them to lose this game. But they should have reviewed that bobble that kept the drive alive. I'm surprised they didn't review it. I mean, at the very least, look at it. I mean, it looked questionable to me. Virginia Tech's making a run, too. I mean, they are down by, what, more than this, so they're making a run. So I'm not out of the woods yet with my North Carolina bet. Why did they go to a commercial break in this A&M game? Ugh. Yeah, Ellinger, like, he has the tools, but he seems like he's just a bad decision maker at times. He is he could have easily been, like, I think he has a better raw skill set than someone like Baker Mayfield had, but he does not have the decision-making skills. I don't know if I'll ever quit my job. Like, I'm well taken care of. I'm pretty high up in the company, you know. But I feel like it's only if I want to move on to the next level of my life, which is like buy a house somewhere. It's not going to be in San Diego, so I'll either have to find another job or hopefully my company will work. Like I said, my company has TV stations all over the country. All over the country. We have 64 different TV stations. So, and I'm a corporate employee. I'm based in San Diego, but I don't work for the TV station where I work for the whole company. So I don't see any reason why I cannot be moved somewhere else if they really wanted to keep me that bad. living in San Diego sucks. I'm sorry. And it sucked even before COVID. During COVID, it's just horrible. Like, even before COVID, I wasn't the biggest fan. Yeah. Yep, touchdown Oklahoma. Texas is on the ropes, guys. Like I said, no excuse. No excuse for them to lose this game. None. I mean, Oklahoma, not only did Oklahoma off back-to-back losses, but they what do they have to play for at this point? You think they would be demoralized? At least Texas only has one loss and could still technically win the Big 12 and go to the playoff. You know, I actually felt pretty good about the Texas bet I have. I'm surprised they've looked so flat. I know they might have been a little bit deflated after losing last week, but what I've seen from Oklahoma this year, there's no reason that Texas cannot win this game. Man, trying to figure out where to pick up food from. I'm meeting some people for the TCU game. Thinking about Popeyes. Just because they had some pretty good deals. That's the thing. Like, remember last year I do the game day cooking videos? I don't do that this year because this garage apartment, the kitchen is just too small for that. And also, like I said, I'm trying to do a little bit better, but I can eat a lot. Like, we did In-N-Out last week, and I ate 6 double doubles in one sitting. Like, I can eat, and I don't do food contests though because Florida's gonna score or not. But I did a food contest in San Diego with my mom. It was like a 12 egg omelet and like a bunch of scallop potatoes at this breakfast restaurant called the Broken Yolk Cafe. And I would have beaten it if I let the omelet cool off. But that's the thing. They started the timer as soon as you take your first bite, and it burned my esophagus, and I could not eat. And the thing with food challenges, you have to eat quickly because after a while your stomach will tell you you're full, so you're trying to eat as much as you can before that happens. And I couldn't eat it fast because it was so hot. That I think that's how they do it right there. That's how they keep you from beating is because they don't expect you to know how hot it's going to be. And like, I still remember the burning sensation of that food sliding down my throat. You know, and it was painful. And yeah, I couldn't get it because of that. Man. Yeah, I don't know if Oklahoma's young. They're young at quarterback. And they're young at the offensive line. So yeah, you're probably right. They're young at offensive line and quarterback. Two very important positions. I know Virginia Tech just scored again. They're on a rally here. They're only going to be down by potentially 3. Wow, I had originally thought that North Carolina had this in the bag, but Virginia Tech scored 23 unanswered points here to pull within a field goal. Wow. Mac Brown, what are you doing? All right, Florida, what are you guys doing here? So Florida's driving. They could probably tie the game here. I'm gonna laugh if A&M loses. Like, my A&M friends are just cursed. They can never win big home games. Man, Texas. Do they go for it here on 4th and 1 on their own end of the field? I think you have to. Are they going to punt? They're punting. Oh, man. My question is, why on 3rd and 1 would he throw a bomb like that? I know the defense is probably expecting a run up the middle, but when you're down by 14, you can't afford to give away a drive like that, especially with the way the defense is playing. Yeah, what was the spread in that Citadel game? I don't do FCS games, but Army usually destroys those FCS teams. Like I was pointing out earlier, is that they just can't handle the triple option. So Army was a 31-point favorite, and their Citadel is 2,500 on the money line. Like I pointed out earlier, the Citadel does run the triple option themselves, so they might have an advantage that other teams don't, and that they just know how to stop it because they practice against it all the time. Not only do they punt to Oklahoma, but the punt wasn't that good either. Some people might call that a give-up punt. Like, I thought Texas was going to be the aggressor in this game, and they're playing like they're scared, to be honest with you. So, when Texas hired Tom Herman, I was skeptical of the hire. So, Florida's kicking a long field goal here, by the way. But I was skeptical of the hire because Tom Herman is an X's and O's coach, and I don't think X's and O's coach can win at a place like Texas. I don't. You need a mob boss type coach like a Nick Saban. You can get away with a motivator like Mac Brown was, but an X's and O's coach cannot win at a big state school like Texas. They can't, because X's and O's coaches aren't going to get the respect of the players. They're not going to be able to win over the locker room, and they're not going to be able to handle the boosters. And Tom Herman is X's and O's coaches do best at schools where you're going to get the most out of your players. We're going to be able to recruit players who are going to be willing to listen to you, who are going to have chips on their shoulder, and that's why he did so good at Houston, because he could feed into that. X's and O's coaches can't win at big state schools that attract top recruits. They can't. So out of all the playoff teams that have made the playoff since the playoffs started, X's and O's coaches coached at Oregon. He got fired. Washington, Chris Peterson is an X's and O's coach, but I don't know if Washington would be considered a big state school. So you can probably succeed as an X's and O's coach like at a place like Washington, and then that's pretty much it, guys. X's and O's coaches are not going to be able to succeed at big state schools. You need a mob boss or a motivator. Like Ohio State, when Urban Meyer was there and they won the national title, he's a cross between a motivator and mob boss. I would say closer to a motivator, but he has mob boss qualities to keep the boosters off his back. Obviously, Nick Saban is a motivator or a mob boss. Ed Orgeron's a motivator. Dabo Swinney's a motivator. So, like I said, I don't think Tom Herman's the right fit for Texas. I never thought he was. The source of his success at Houston was never going to carry over to Texas. Because if you notice, when he's at Houston, they always did really good in the underdog role, and then they'd flop on their face in the favorite role. And that's my thoughts on Tom Herman, and that's why I don't think he's the right fit at Texas. I'm sorry. He would be a much better fit at a place like Baylor. You know, maybe a Texas Tech, an Oklahoma State, like a mid-tier Power 5 school that's, you know, not the biggest fish in their pond. He'd be a much better fit. And if LSU had hired him like was being speculated, it would have been the same result. Top level talent, like your high 4 stars and 5 stars, are only going to respond to a certain type of coach. that commands that that just has the presence to command a lot of respect, and Tom Herman's not that guy. And that's why, okay, so Florida's going to kick this long field goal here. It looks like it's going to be a 52-yarder. So let's see if they can make it. They're going to need this to tie. Their defense hasn't stopped anything all half, so I wouldn't feel good if they missed this if I were Florida. And it looks like he made it. Nice. Tie game, 9 minutes to go. That was a very nice field goal there for Florida. Well, yeah, Lincoln Riley was an X's and O's guy, but I think he's learning more and more that he has to transition to be he's always going to be an X's and O's guy. That's why he was hired. Bob Stoops was a mob boss. And I think he's learning more and more that he has to be a mob boss, and we'll have to see if he can slide into that role. It's just that, like I said, you can't one of the main reasons you can't succeed as an X's and O's coach at a big school like Oklahoma is because you just have too many battle fronts you have to fight. You have to fight the boosters, and you have to fight the egos. And so when you're focusing all your energy on that, you don't have time to focus on the X's and O's. That's why X's and O's coaches can only succeed at places where you're not fighting the ego and the booster fronts. So you can dedicate all your time to scheming and game planning and the X's and O's and preparation and all that. So Texas is able to force a punt, so that's good for them. But they have to do something offensively. Like, this Oklahoma defense is not good, and yet they look lost on offense. I withdrew all my money from 5 Dimes, so I use a local now. So I don't bet online anymore, and I probably never will until it's legal in my state, because I don't trust offshore books after what I had to go through to get my money out of 5 Dimes. I don't. That was ridiculous. I agree that Oklahoma will never win a championship with Lincoln Riley. I agree with that. Bob Stoops was a mob boss, yes. I'm not saying if the mob bosses don't coach, and I'm not saying the motivators don't coach, but they are a lot less involved with they delegate everything to their coordinator. They're delegators. Like, Ed Orgeron is a motivator. He delegates everything to his coordinators, and he's just kind of there to, like, recruit and motivate, keep the team together. The difference between a mob boss and a motivator is that a mob boss is more of like it's basically based on attitude. Like, mob bosses rule with an iron fist. Motivators are a lot more like free-spirited. So, like, you can tell the difference between a Nick Saban and a Dabo Swinney. Like, a Dabo Swinney is a lot more like, free-spirited, relaxed, goofy, joking around type, just kind of like. Nick Saban is very serious. Because they have to be. You have to be serious to control the boosters. Yeah, I think Lincoln Riley needs to go to the NFL. I do. His stock is never higher than it is right now. And I feel like he's reached the ceiling at Oklahoma. Oklahoma needs a defensive guy to win a title. Most of these teams that win titles are defense focused. LSU was really the first exception to that last year. But all these other teams that are winning titles are defense focused. You're not going to win a title with offense as your identity unless you have a lightning strike, once in a million setup like LSU had last year, where they just had talent across the board and a coordinator who rolled something out that teams couldn't adjust to yet. But I don't believe that an offensive identity is going to win you a national title, which is why Oklahoma will never do it. They need a defensive guy. Bob Stoops was a defensive guy. Like, think of all the national title winners over the past 20 years. Auburn and LSU are really the only teams I can think of that were offense-first teams, where offense was their identity, that won a title. And both of them had generational quarterbacks and a scheme that was gimmicky that teams just couldn't adjust to yet. But notice how teams caught up to the Chip Kelly scheme. The Kevin Sumlin scheme at A&M only lasted like 1 or 2 years before the SEC figured it out. That's one thing that these coaches in college are very good at doing is gimmicks can work for a year or two, but eventually teams adjust. So that's why I feel like Lincoln Riley, I don't know if his scheme is a gimmick or not, but that's just the thing. Teams are too good at adjusting. A local, just like a local bookmaker, a bookie that I call and place bets with. All right, so could Florida's defense finally get a stop? Watching 2 games at once here. The answer to that question is no. Oh, fumble. Florida recovered. Was he down? Did Florida recover that? Did the ref said he was down? It all depends on what the call on the field is here, but I think that was a strip fumble. I think Florida recovered that. Oh man, Texas just overthrew a wide open guy. See, those are the plays they need to make, and they're just not making them today. All right, so the call on the field, the ref said Florida recovered it, and of course they go straight to commercial for some reason. And then Texas can't convert their 4th down. Like, Texas's offense, I don't know what the deal is, but they look terrible. This is a joke. There's no way Tom Herman can survive this, but they gave him that huge buyout after a 4-loss season for whatever reason. I would never implement a $19 million buyout after a 4-loss season. I don't care if they won the Sugar Bowl over Georgia. Like, there's no way Tom Herman can survive this loss. He can't. This would be their 3rd straight loss to Oklahoma. 2 losses in a year they're expected to compete for the Big 12. Another year with expectations they don't meet. So maybe before coronavirus they could afford to pony up the $19 million to buy him out, but I don't know. So yeah, not looking good for Texas and Texas A&M right now. And honestly, I don't care. I get schadenfreude watching those 2 teams lose. You know, a good day for me is if Baylor, Texas, and A&M all lose on the same day, which happened last week. Like Texas Tech, I used to hate Texas Tech, but that was more so when we were in the Mountain West, and they're like, haha, we're automatically better than you guys because we're in the Big 12 and you're not. And that's all they had on us, even though we beat them my freshman year at TCU. But ever since we joined the Big 12, and we've kind of taken over them, you know, in terms of like program rankings and viability, you know, they just kind of, I don't really hate them as much as I used to. But Texas Tech fans used to be really annoying. They used to like make fun of TCU because of attendance, like that, as if that's what mattered. Like, haha, you guys might have won the Rose Bowl, but we have more attendance. Like, so what? You know, A&M does the same thing. Like, haha, we get 110,000 people into Kyle Field every game, and I'm like, yeah, but you guys don't win games that matter that are played there. The only teams you beat in Kyle Field are Vanderbilt and the bottom feeder body bag games you play in non-conference. The gimmicky offenses work in college football for a while, but eventually coaches figure them out. Like, remember the Chip Kelly offense at Oregon, how it seemed unstoppable? You know, but teams recruit to stop those offenses and scheme to stop those offenses, and then these offenses can't adapt and adjust, and, you know, it's kind of like a never-ending cycle. The wishbone offense used to be unstoppable in college football, and now no one runs it anymore outside of Army and sometimes Navy and Air Force. Teams adjust. So I feel like the best path to winning a national title in college football is to have a good defense. It's not that LSU's offense last year it was gimmicky in a way, but they had generational talent across the board at key positions on offense. Like, how many times last year were you watching an LSU game where Joe Burrow would just throw it up and one of the receivers just come down with the ball, right? It happens so many times. It reminded me a lot of Texas A&M when Johnny Manziel was their quarterback. But it was less of Johnny Manziel making crazy scrambles and more of just when Johnny Manziel would throw it up to Mike Evans and he would catch it. That would happen all the time. And it was like that last year at LSU, only they had more than Mike Evans. It was all their receivers would just catch all these crazy jump balls. All right, Florida's driving here. The June Jones offense. So, yeah, we had to play against them when I was at TCU because he was at SMU. Running scout team for the June Jones offense was awful because basically all it was during practice was just running verticals every play because, like, he would have 3 players run verticals and another player run, like, a short route. And I would always be the receiver that just had to run vertical every play, and it was like a freaking marathon. Those were the worst. As we called it SMU week, it was the worst. Because that's all you did was run verticals. But where June Jones killed us, when I was at TCU, we never lost SMU. We beat them by double digits every game. But they had a running back named Zach Lyon that would, like, when I was at TCU, we would never give up a lot of rushing yards ever to anybody. But he ran for 100 yards against us back-to-back years. Zach Lyon, they're like fullback. Because they would run so many delayed draws against us. June Jones is a very smart coach. The reason he fizzled out at SMU is because he couldn't recruit, and his practices sucked. The way he practiced and prepared sucked. But he was a very good X's and O's guy, very smart, but he couldn't recruit. He didn't build relationships with the local high schools in the Dallas area. And like I said, the way he practiced like an NFL team would practice. And NFL practices are a lot different than college practices because NFL practices are a lot more walkthroughs. You don't really have any contact. You're really just wearing helmets and not really any pads. So a lot walkthrough focus. And he ran his college practices like that, so they are very soft. All right, touchdown Florida, and Oklahoma's driving. Yeah, Tom Herman, he cannot survive this loss, but Texas played themselves by giving him this huge buyout after a 4-loss season. Man, this Florida A&M game turned around quick. Alright, guys, it's getting closer to 3 o'clock. I know I say I'd stay to the end of this A&M game, but I don't know if I'll be able to do it. Man. Alright, well, Texas pretty much has to... Alright, so they need... Oh, they fumbled. Oh, Texas had their chance... had their chance there, but they gotta stop them right here. Their game's pretty much over. I wonder what... I wish I could go to Surly Horns and see what they're saying right now, but I guarantee it would be timing out. 404. Or server overload. Yeah, I'll see what happens with this drive for Oklahoma, but so they got the sack they needed. Texas did, but they're running out of time. All right, guys, I'm gonna call it a day here on the stream. Like I said, I got to pick up some food and everything before 3 o'clock. So thanks for tuning in. I'll do this again sometime, maybe next week at some point. No TCU game next week, so I might do it at a little different time. But thanks everybody for tuning in.